Chapter 1037. Following the display of this strange technique, the movements of the Dharma Supreme's hands became slower and slower. It could be clearly felt that when he first punched, his arms were straightened and punched out fiercely. However, Bu Liuqing's attacks became fiercer and fiercer, and the Dharma Supreme seemed to be unable to withstand it. His arms were already slowly retracting, and his punch met the sword light halfway. The distance between the two parties became even closer. Under the illumination of the sword light, Bu Liuqing's hair and beard were all green. His eyes were filled with murderous intent, but his expression was still cold and hard. All of a sudden, the Dharma Supreme let out a long howl. Suddenly, his two legs flew up and shattered the two streaks of sword light with his two kicks. Then, like a sharp arrow, his body shot out from the front to the back, facing the torrential sword light. His legs were like two dragons coming out of the sea, bringing with them a whirlwind and a thick cloud of black gas. Like lightning, he shattered 300 sword light and was already 70 to 80 feet away from Bu Liuqing. Then, his whole body started to spin like a windmill. At the same time, the whole world seemed to be spinning along with him. The Dharma Supreme's hands suddenly made strange gestures. The sky was suddenly filled with black gas. Chu Yang and Wu Qianqian, who were standing beside Zi Sheqing, felt dizzy at the same time. At this moment, the two of them felt that the top of their heads had become the earth and the bottom of their feet had become the blue sky. However, the two of them obviously did not move. Bu Liuqing let out a long howl. The sky becomes the earth becomes the sky. Dharma Supreme, your celestial body is indeed extraordinary. Suddenly, there was a long howl. The long sword paused, and then a sword sound that changed the color of the sky suddenly rang out. At this moment, the short sword at Wu Qianqian's waist actually left its scabbard with a clang. It floated in front of Wu Qianqian, and the tip of the sword pointed in the direction of Bu Liuqing. Chu Yang's pupils shrank. The Dharma Supreme laughed lightly. Bu Liuqing, you finally showed your trump card. I guessed right, you are indeed the supreme martial artist of the sword. Bu Liuqing sneered. The supreme martial artist of the sword can rule the world. Your celestial body is just a joke in front of me. Don't forget, this is the world of the sword, the world of the heavens. A loud roar. The long sword flew into the sky and suddenly, it was hidden in the starry sky. A strange scene appeared in front of Chu Yang and the others. At this moment, with Bu Liuqing and the Dharma Supreme as the dividing line, every star on Bu Liuqing's side emitted a dazzling sword light as they descended majestically from the sky. Tens of millions of stars shone at the same time, forming a true Milky Way in the sky. Bu Liuqing stood upright in the air. He raised his right hand and shouted, "Milky Way / destroy." Following his hand gesture, the sword light emitted from the stars in the sky converged towards him at the same time. In an instant, they formed a seemingly real sword that was thousands of feet long. Then, it slashed down towards the Dharma Supreme. At the same time, the Dharma Supreme had finally completed his last gesture. With a faint smile, he pointed a finger. In the sky behind him, the boundless starlight turned into a dazzling torrent. Like Bu Liuqing, it transformed into a huge fist and met Bu Liuqing's huge sword head-on. Bu Liuqing, you are able to transform the power of the stars into sword energy. How can you not know that the power of the stars is also a kind of power of heaven and earth? The Dharma Supreme smiled. In front of my lawful celestial body, isn't it a joke that you are able to transform the power of the stars? Bu Liuqing said, whether it's a joke or not, you can talk after receiving it. Bu Liuqing snorted and waved his hand. The huge starlight sword and the starlight fist collided fiercely. With a loud bang, the sky was filled with dazzling starlight. Immediately, the sky was silent again. The moment the two forces collided, they suddenly condensed together. It had strangely condensed together. Under such circumstances, if the energy did not explode, no one would be able to leave. Bu Liuqing's sword fell from the sky, turning into a ray of light and landing in Bu Liuqing's hand. Bu Liuqing stared at the Dharma Supreme and said softly, "The mercy sword was changed to Bu Liuqing in order to avenge my brother." The Dharma Supreme stood in the air, as if he was frozen. However, he said indifferently, "You have the sword, I have the fist. A sword is just a sword, but a fist is power. Clenching the fist is wielding power. A powerful punch is power. A sword can only kill, but power can dominate. Bu Luqing, you are no match for me." With a loud bang, the starlight that was frozen between the two of them finally exploded. In that instant, the sky was filled with colorful lights, as if fireworks were blooming at the same time. With a loud laugh, the Dharma Supreme flew out like a sharp sword, disappearing without a trace. Bu Luqing, however, remained at the same spot, his face solemn. The Dharma Supreme had finally escaped from his control. Previously, he used his aura and 13,000 years of grief to turn into the power of revenge, gaining the upper hand in terms of morality and ethics. Then, on the basis of justice, he created a psychological weakness in the Dharma Supreme, gaining the upper hand and gaining the upper hand. At that time, if the Dharma Supreme retreated during the battle, his aura would be unstoppable. However, the Dharma Supreme gritted his teeth and held on, not retreating a single step. At this moment, taking advantage of this explosion, he finally retreated unscathed. Next, it was the Dharma Supreme's turn to attack. The Dharma Supreme is right. No matter how strong a sword is, it is still a loner. However, power can move the world. Therefore, on this point he is more certain than I am. Bu Luqing frowned and pondered. Suddenly he laughed coldly. However, having power in one's hands, if it is not used properly, it is also a demon in one's heart. If it was Dongfang Bidao, he could still be selfless. However, you are a despicable person who stole someone else's body. So what if you have power? The three people watching the battle heaved a sigh of relief. Chu Yang said solemnly, "Now, it has returned to its original state of being evenly matched." Wu Qianqian was about to speak when she suddenly felt the ground beneath her feet shaking. The three of them looked over. Chu Yang and Wu Qianqian gasped at the same time. They saw a huge mountain in the distance shake twice and suddenly fly up from the ground. This mountain was thousands of feet high and had a radius of a few miles. It flew straight up into the sky like a huge stick. Zi Xieching shouted, "Look carefully!" With a stroke of her hand, with a swoosh, the mountain suddenly appeared in front of them. A faint black figure could be seen circling the mountain like a stream of light, hitting it with his palms. After he finished circling the mountain actually shrank by more than 20 times due to the pressure from his palms. Immediately after, he actually grabbed the bottom of the mountain with one hand and kicked with both feet. He laughed loudly. "Bu Luqing, take my stick." He really treated the mountain as a stick and smashed it down with his stick. Wu Qianqian rubbed her eyes hard. Her little mouth was wide open. There was actually such a thing in the world. At this moment, Chu Yang suddenly remembered Han Xiaoran's words. When the Dharma Supreme fought with Wu Jueqing, both of them had a huge mountain each. They just floated in the air and collided. Zi Xieching's eyes flashed. Suddenly, she grabbed Chu Yang and Wu Qianqian and extended her body. She flew to the mountain. As the Dharma Supreme waved his stick, the three of them felt the ground rushing towards them. The scenery on both sides became blurry shadows. Wu Qianqian was scared and wanted to close her eyes. "Don't close your eyes." Chu Yang shouted, "Look! This is the most rare experience." Zi Xieching brought the two of them to the mountain to directly participate in the peak battle experience. No matter what would happen in the future, this experience, it would be etched in their hearts. It had an immeasurable significance to their cultivation. In the whole world, perhaps only Zi Xieching could do this, and only she was willing to do so much for them. At this moment, Chu Yang suddenly felt the huge expectations that Zi Xieching had for him. In front of them, a ray of sword light came towards them like rolling thunder. Bu Luqing shouted, "It's just a piece of stone, so what if you take it?" The ray of sword light was actually 1,000 feet thick and a few thousand feet long. It came towards them like a thunderbolt. Boom! Chu Yang and Wu Qianqian only felt a sudden tremor. At this moment, their hearts were in so much pain that they almost vomited blood. I purposely let this in. It's 1/10,000th of the force of the tremor caused by their collision. Zi Xiecheng looked ahead and said lightly to the two of them. The two of them were shocked. 1/10,000th of the force. Immediately, another feeling of weightlessness came from beneath their feet. The Dharma Supreme had already raised this huge cudgel and smashed it down again. Continuous sounds of collision rang out. Chu Yang and the other two moved from the top of the cudgel to the bottom of the cudgel. Because the front half of the cudgel had already been cut off by Bu Luqing like a carrot, finally, this cudgel, made from a huge mountain, was thrown out by the Dharma Supreme. It was accompanied by the sound of thunder. Zi Xiecheng, Chu Yang and the other two were naturally thrown out. Opposite them, Bu Luqing was still dressed in a long green robe, spotless. His back was straight. He was proud of the world, his face was lean and cold, his gaze was sharp and his sword was like snow. His green robe fluttered. With a kick in the air, he kicked this half of the cudgel to one side. Then, with a stretch of his body, thousands and thousands of Bu Luqing appeared in the air. With a roar, it was as if 10,000 people were roaring at the same time. Then, the 10,000 figures rushed towards the Dharma Supreme, who was charging towards them. The Dharma Supreme laughed loudly. With a sway of his body, thousands and thousands of figures also went up to meet them. The air started to crackle like firecrackers and exploded. It was just that these firecrackers were really too loud. The three of them flew lightly to the sky above the battle and watched intently. After a long time, Zi Xiecheng sighed. These two are evenly matched. Neither can kill the other. Bu Luqing has the advantage in the sharpness of his sword energy, pressing forward courageously. The Dharma Supreme has a profound cultivation level. Coincidentally, they offset each other's advantage. There is a huge force in the Dharma Supreme's body that has yet to be released. Once it is released, Bu Luqing will definitely die. But this force is clashing with this body. Therefore, if it is released, the Dharma Supreme will also explode and die instantly. And it will be an outcome of mutual destruction. The two of you can stop watching the battle. Any more and you too won't be able to comprehend it. Zi Xiecheng analyzed indifferently. Suddenly, she turned and asked Chu Yang, "Do you want the Dharma Supreme to die?" Chu Yang smiled indifferently. "Not at the moment. If he dies now, the heavens will really be in a mess. And I don't have the ability to organize it now. Let him be defeated first." Chapter 1038. Zi Xiecheng nodded. "I know that you want to help Bu Luqing." At this moment, Bu Luqing was rushing forward on his sword. Zi Xiecheng smiled lightly. With a shake of her sleeves, a small hand as white as jade suddenly stretched out. Her palm was like a knife. Then, she sent out a palm strike from afar. When this palm strike was sent out, although Zi Xiecheng looked casual, Chu Yang could clearly see a faint purple aura rising from Zi Xiecheng's face. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. This palm strike, even for Zi Xiecheng, would not be easy. To defeat the pinnacle of the generation with a single palm strike and not be detected by others, the difficulty of this was imaginable. A faint purple aura, along with Zi Xiecheng's palm strike, turned into a ray of light and quickly chased behind Bu Luqing, disappearing without a trace. In the blink of an eye. At this moment, the Dharma Supreme and Bu Luqing were also crazily clashing with each other. The thousands of illusions of both of them collided with each other amidst a series of pop-pop-pop sounds, canceling each other out. However, neither of them retreated. Bu Luqing shouted loudly. With a thunderous force, he actually swung his long sword in a circle like a big knife. Holding the sword with both hands, he chopped down viciously. When this sword was sent out, the stars in the sky seemed to close their eyes in fear. Between heaven and earth, there was only darkness. Unparalleled dominance, it actually sucked all the air in the entire space, tilting towards the space from all directions. Good sword. The Dharma Supreme's face was cold as he sent out both his fists. With both fists, along with the restrained energy moving forward, everywhere it passed, everything, including space, was shattered. Far away. It was still a power that was completely different from Bu Luqing's. If you retract, I will release. If you release, I will absorb. If you come in, I will go out. No matter what, we are sworn enemies. Both of them were calm and composed. At this moment, 4 pairs of eyes met across space, with the same coldness. Constant. Expressionless. But both of them knew that this strike would decide the outcome. Or both of them would suffer. Or one of them would live, or both of them would perish. At this point, both of them had figured out each other's strength. Both of them were evenly matched. If they continued to fight like this for a year, it would not be the same. Therefore, none of them were willing to drag this out any longer and went all out. End the battle quickly. The sooner the better. In the blink of an eye. 1 sword and 2 fists. They collided with each other. However, the 2 of them did not realize that there was an invisible and slender palm energy that was 1 step ahead of Bu Liuqing's long sword to meet the Dharma Supreme's right fist. Zi Xiecheng was already standing in the air with her hands behind her back. She smiled faintly and murmured, "I'll let you have power." A look of surprise flashed across the Dharma Supreme's eyes. Then, it turned into a look of shock, and finally, a trace of fear. What followed was utter shock. He only felt that there was a mysterious force in front of the long sword that suddenly collided with him. Bu Liuqing actually had a backup plan? He actually had such power? The Dharma Supreme did not have the time to think carefully. He was struggling to hold on. Because, at this moment, the energy in his body is suppressed by this mysterious force, and he can't release it. However, his fists had already struck out. He couldn't take it back. Since they were about to come into contact with each other, there was no time to dodge. At this moment, the Dharma Supreme let out a crazed roar, desperately activating the energy in his body to counter the attack. At the same time, he desperately turned his body to one side. He only used his left fist to meet Bu Liuqing's sword. His right fist met the mysterious force with all his might. Boom! The Dharma Supreme's body trembled violently. His face flushed red and thin streaks of blood appeared from his 7 orifices. Then, Bu Liuqing's sword came towards him. It seemed to be at the same time, but the Dharma Supreme still managed to create a gap. It was this gap, but it was not at the same time. The Dharma Supreme hurriedly exhaled. His left fist retracted and released, colliding violently with Bu Liuqing's sword. Both the Dharma Supreme and Bu Liuqing's bodies trembled violently at the same time. However, Bu Liuqing leaned back and stood steadily. However, the Dharma Supreme's face turned purplish red. His body trembled twice and finally, he could not hold it in any longer and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. At the same time, he staggered backward. With every step backward, his body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. With another step backward, his long hair fluttered in the wind. He spat out another mouthful of blood and took another step backward before he finally stood still in the air. His expression was still indifferent and his gaze was still calm. He raised his head and looked at Bu Liuqing. The force of the collision then surged wildly and spread in all directions. On the ground, all of the mountains, rivers, and trees within several hundred kilometers were lifted off the ground and scattered wildly in all directions. Below, the dense mountains and rivers had suddenly become a flat plain that stretched as far as the eye could see. This was the first time that Chu Yang had seen such a real tsunami in a place filled with mountains and rivers. Yes, a tsunami. No matter which direction it was from, as long as one looked at it, it was a tsunami. It was definitely not an illusion. It was just that it was a tsunami made of rocks and sand. The sound of the tsunami finally subsided. Only a plain was left. In the future, this huge plain would be known as the Supreme Martial Artist Plain, because it was accidentally formed during a battle between 2 high-level supreme martial artists. Bu Liuqing stood in the air, dressed in green and holding a long sword, looking coldly at the Dharma Supreme opposite him. Bu Liuqing, I have underestimated you. The Dharma Supreme stretched out a hand and gently wiped away the remaining blood at the corner of his mouth. He smiled faintly and said, I did not expect you to have already surpassed the supreme grade and reached the stage of collapsing the sky and breaking the void. However, you have not left until now and would rather suffer the pain of the heavenly punishment that comes once every few hundred years just to seek revenge on me? Bu Luqing was about to give chase but was startled by the Dharma Supreme's reaction. He did not expect the Dharma Supreme to be defeated so quickly. This seemed a little ridiculous. He should not have been defeated so quickly. Upon hearing the Dharma Supreme's words, he was startled again. This sentence was simply incomprehensible. Bu Luqing knew his own cultivation. Now, he was only half a step away from that mysterious realm, but he had not stepped into it. But why did the Dharma Supreme say that he had already surpassed it? Was it an illusion? But how could someone like the Dharma Supreme have an illusion? Chu Yang and Wu Qianxian looked at each other in shock. The Dharma Supreme and Bu Luqing, who were involved in Zi Sheqing's secret attack, did not even realize it. Bu Luqing thought that he had the upper hand, and the Dharma Supreme similarly thought that Bu Luqing had defeated him with his real cultivation. Bu Luqing said indifferently, "It is not that you have overestimated me, but that you have overestimated yourself. I have not surpassed that step." He looked coldly at the Dharma Supreme and said, "Because you have a guilty conscience." The Dharma Supreme smiled and shook his head. "Brother Bu, you are not one of the tribulations. You do not know the hatred in my heart. For that hatred, I will not feel guilty about anything I do." He raised his head and sighed deeply. "Today, I have been defeated and injured. This feeling is very comfortable and I miss it very much. Back then, I was also a hot-blooded person, Moreover, I am also easily sentimental." The Dharma Supreme looked at Bu Luqing and smiled. "Brother Bu, although I am injured, if I want to leave, even if you and Ning Tianya are here, you will not be able to stop me. You should know this in your heart, right?" Bu Luqing was silent for a moment before he said, "Indeed, we will not be able to stop you. At this level of cultivation, unless one fought to the death and did not try to escape, there was a possibility of dying in battle. But if he really wanted to leave, as the Dharma Supreme said, even if Ning Tianya and Ning Tianya joined forces, they would not be able to stop him. If that is the case, would Brother Bu be interested in listening to a short story of mine?" The Dharma Supreme smiled indifferently, his eyes revealing a trace of distance. "Then I will also solve your doubts." Bu Luqing smiled coldly and said, "I am all ears." The Dharma Supreme smiled faintly and said, "I shall start from when I was injured. This story is really a long time ago. It has been bottled up in my heart for tens of thousands of years. Brother Bu, you want to kill me to avenge your brother. However, do you know why I, a departed soul who should have died long ago, is still here?" Bu Luqing did not speak. The Dharma Supreme laughed sadly. "You want to avenge your brother? I also want to avenge my brother. Brother Bu, the two of us are really in the same boat." After he finished speaking, he lowered his eyes, as if he was deep in thought, reminiscing and reminiscing. At this moment, the lines on the face of the Dharma Supreme, who was like a demon king, actually softened. "Back then, every time I was injured, there would always be a few brothers accompanying me. This one was protecting me, this one was treating me, this one was comforting me. At that time, the 10 of us brothers were of one heart. Individually, we accompanied our boss, the Tribulation Sword Master, and fought with our lives on the line. When we fought our way from the lower 3 heavens to the upper 3 heavens, it was the 4 of us. But when we fought our way up from the lower 3 heavens to the upper 3 heavens, it became 7 of us. When we reached the upper 3 heavens, it became 10 of us." Fresh blood flowed from the corner of the Dharma Supreme's mouth again. He wiped it away and smiled indifferently. Just like chatting with an old friend, he talked tirelessly. In fact, Bu Luqing could totally feel that the Dharma Supreme did not even circulate his energy to heal his injuries during this period of time. In fact, he even allowed his injuries to worsen. "You are really one of the tribulations." Bu Luqing let out a long sigh. He knew that the Dharma Supreme was talking about the secrets of the Tribulation Sword Master. Beside him, Chu Yang was instantly energized and became fully focused. The Sword Spirit had never mentioned this before. The divine soul of the first Tribulation Sword Master was also very vague. But now, the Dharma Supreme in front of him was the person involved. Chu Yang could faintly feel that this time, he was about to unravel the biggest doubt in his heart. and also the biggest secret of the Tribulation Sword Master for the past 100,000 years. Chapter 1039. The Dharma Supreme smiled faintly and said indifferently, with a sense of nostalgia and an inexplicable melancholy. Back then, from the very beginning, Big Brother gave us countless elixirs and elixirs. Almost every few days, everyone's cultivation would soar. Big Brother said that we would rule the heavens together. We would complete our ultimate dream together. Zi Xiecheng heard this and couldn't help but sigh. She scolded, "This is simply nonsense. Using elixirs to form it, isn't this purely harming people?" Chu Yang agreed. To be able to become one of the tribulations, which one of them wasn't a peerless genius? Using elixirs was equivalent to directly blocking the path of these people to collapse the heavens and break the void. However, if they didn't consider their ultimate future from the beginning and only wanted to use them to mend the heavens, doing this could be considered a way. It was just that it was really too cold and heartless. The Dharma Supreme continued to speak. We brothers gave up everything for each other. Including our lives, we could let the other party take it easily. Big Brother didn't say anything to us. At that time, we felt that even the gods couldn't make us brothers bow down and retreat in defeat. We advanced step by step, killing revered martial artists, defeating martial kings, killing martial emperors, defeating martial emperors, killing martial saints and battling supreme martial artists. Along the way, we rose to fame. When we reached the upper three heavens, we advanced step by step, fighting one clan after another, from the weak to the strong. I can't even remember how many times we went through life and death, how many times we circled the gates of hell. Finally, all 10 of us reached the level of supreme martial artists. The big clans were unreasonable and were finally eliminated by us. It was much easier than the current Tribulation Sword Master. In the entire heavens, there weren't many supreme martial artists and above. As for 8th grade, there wasn't even a single one. The Dharma Supreme led the crowd to help. At that time, we were very tired every day, but we were very happy every day. We gathered together every day, discussing excitedly and paying attention to each other's changes with concern. When our brothers were injured, we would curse together. When our brothers were victorious, we would celebrate together. The iron and blood martial world was all-powerful. We could come and go as we pleased. We could kill as we pleased, and we could do whatever we wanted. Those days were really a period of time. If time stopped at that moment, even if we were to be in that chaotic battlefield forever, it would be the greatest happiness. However, although we were happy then, we were also very tired. Everyone wanted to level the heavens as soon as possible and complete everyone's ultimate goal, 10 brothers standing at the peak of the world. Then, everyone would live their lives peacefully and peacefully. So we destroyed the big clans. After that, the 10 brothers formed their own clans and recruited heavenly layer experts. The entire heavenly layer was finally peaceful. Everyone felt that we could finally enjoy the world of this world of the world. When Big Brother called Big Brother, Big Brother called Big Brother brother, Big Brother. Of course, Big Brother had to go. So, everyone went there excitedly. The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, as if he was talking about someone else's story. His voice was very calm. However, this calmness contained an indescribable feeling. At this point, although he didn't deliberately emphasize his tone, Chu Yang also felt as if a chilly wind was blowing at the back of his head. It was chilly. Chu Yang thought to himself, looks like something must have happened during this drinking session. That day, after we went, Big Brother said that our cultivation was too high. Damn it, we can't even get drunk now. All of us would subconsciously circulate our energy and the effects of the alcohol would be gone. It's boring. So we might as well seal our cultivation and get drunk together. It's boring if we don't get drunk, so everyone cheered. The heavens are all ours, what danger can there be? It's just sealing our cultivation, we've done it many times before. It's more fun to drink like this. The Dharma Supreme suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly. That drinking session went on for 3 days and 3 nights. Everyone was drunk. When I woke up, I realized that I couldn't move. My cultivation as a 7th grade supreme martial artist couldn't be used at all. It was as if I was dead. I tried hard to turn my head and realized that my brothers were all lying down, but their eyes were all dazed. No one knew what had happened. At this time, Big Brother walked in and said with a smile, "Brothers, did you have a good time drinking this session?" Everyone was relieved at once. Big Brother came and saw that everything was fine. He even joked with us. So everyone laughed. Everyone laughed. I was laughing too, huh? When Big Brother said that, I remember that Big Brother even said, "Big Brother, we had a good time drinking this wine. Next time, let's drink like this again." But why can't I stand up? Could I have been drugged? I was just joking, everyone knew that. But everyone still reprimanded me in unison, thinking that he had gone overboard. Yes, it's all thanks to Big Brother that we can be where we are today. How can we doubt Big Brother? Even if it was a joke, it shouldn't have happened. Even if we had such thoughts, we shouldn't have done that. He. The Dharma Supreme laughed coldly twice. When the Dharma Supreme said the sentence, "shouldn't have happened," even with Bu Liuqing's cultivation and willpower, he couldn't help but shudder. There was a strong sense of grief, self-deprecation, anger, disbelief, the humiliation of being deceived, that strong sense of unwillingness. All these emotions were intertwined together. Anyone who heard this sentence would feel their hair stand on end. Zi Sheqing called out to Chu Yang twice, but Chu Yang didn't respond at all. Chu Yang's ears perked up as he listened to the Dharma Supreme's words. He was completely focused and didn't get distracted at all. He didn't hear Zi Sheqing's call at all. His whole mind was already immersed in this story. This was the first time Chu Yang heard the story of the Tribulation Sword Master and his brothers. Hearing the Dharma Supreme's words, imagining the unreserved trust between brothers, absolute loyalty and respect for Big Brother, Chu Yang was touched and suddenly thought of his own brothers. My brothers are definitely not inferior to all of you. My brothers also treat me the same. But I'm different from all of you. I won't treat my brothers that way. At that time, Big Brother said that I was right. All of you can't move now because I had drugged you. I had drugged you with soul-poisoning powder. The Dharma Supreme laughed lightly and shook his head. Silence fell. Soul-poisoning powder. Even though Bu Liuqing and the Dharma Supreme were archenemies now, he couldn't help but sigh, not knowing what to say. Soul-poisoning powder was a type of medicine that was specially used against supreme martial artists. It was useless against ordinary people. When a person reached supreme martial artist level and above, a second primordial spirit would be formed. All of the inner energy cultivation was used to support the growth of this second primordial spirit. Once the second primordial spirit grew up, it would be the time to collapse the sky and shatter the void. And soul-poisoning powder was used to immobilize the second primordial spirit. It was an extremely vicious medicine. Once the second primordial spirit was immobilized, a supreme martial artist would be at the mercy of anyone. Even a 3-year-old child could kill him as long as he had a knife in his hand. Bu Liuqing didn't expect that the master of Tribulation's sword would actually use soul-poisoning powder on his brothers. Sigh. The Dharma Supreme also let out a long sigh and said bitterly, "Brother Bu, perhaps tomorrow we will still be mortal enemies, but what I said today is all true. The situation back then is still vivid in my mind. Every word that was said has been repeated hundreds of thousands of times in my ears. Everyone's tone, everyone's expression, even if I were to live for another 1,000,000 years, I will definitely not forget it." He looked at the starry sky in a daze and said, "It's always lonely at the top." This sentence really makes sense. All these years, I wanted to find someone to talk to, but I couldn't find anyone. Bu Liuqing nodded deeply and said, "I believe you." The Dharma Supreme laughed and continued, "When Big Brother said that, all of us were stunned. Our first reaction was that Big Brother was joking. Second brother said, 'Big Brother, what are you playing at? Quickly get us to stand up, we will give you a good beating.' Big Brother shook his head and said, 'I have a few words, a few things that I want to talk to you guys about today. I had no choice but to do this. I wanted to let you guys listen to me quietly.' Therefore all of us said, "What, can't you just sit up and touch the bottom of the wine cup? You even had to restrain us, big brother, you are too much." But until then, all of us knew that there was absolutely nothing going on. Big brother would definitely not harm us. Even Diwu Chochang, who was the most resourceful among us, said, "I believe the things that Big Brother says will make us move." The Dharma Supreme laughed. Diwu Chochang. Hearing this name, Bu Luqing was finally shocked and said, "You are one of the tribulations from 30,000 years ago." The Dharma Supreme ignored him and continued. Big Brother said, "Everyone knows that I am the Master of Tribulation's sword, and everyone knows that the mission of the Master of Tribulation's sword is to reform the heavens. However, there is one thing that all of you don't know. The Master of Tribulation's sword has another mission, which is to use the power of millions of dead souls to mend the heavens for 10,000 years, to ensure that the heavens will not collapse in 10,000 years." At that time, everyone was very excited and very moved, saying, "This is a good thing, the merit is in the present, the benefits are in the future, for the sake of happiness for thousands of years to come. How can we brothers be willing to fall behind others? Although all of us have killed countless people, all of us have a clear conscience. We are worthy of the world." Big Brother said. Big Brother said. The Dharma Supreme's voice trembled slightly and then returned to normal. He said, "Big Brother said, but this mission can only be completed by myself, and I need all of your help." Chapter 1040. At this point, the Dharma Supreme should have paused for a moment, but he continued without hesitation. When Big Brother said this, the brothers immediately felt that something was amiss. All of them were dumbfounded. Diwu Chochang laughed dryly and said, "Big Brother, don't tell me you want to kill us?" Big Brother said that I don't want to kill you, but I need your souls. Only your souls can mend the crack in the heavens. Diwu Chochang was silent for a moment. Then he said, "If we mend the heavens, what about you, Big Brother?" Big Brother said, "I've made up for the heavens, and the power of virtue I've gained is enough for me to break through to the level where I can collapse the sky and break the void. At that time, I'll naturally leave this world and enter another world to cultivate, or to work hard and start a new life. I heard that it is a paradise where you can have anything you want. Only those who have the merit to mend the heavens can enter." Big Brother said that your efforts are worth it. At this point, the Dharma Supreme finally fell silent. His throat trembled violently as he laughed bitterly. His laughter was hoarse. Paradise? Zi Xiecheng sent a telepathic message to Chu Yang, puzzled. Chu Yang shook his head slowly. This was too strange. Chu Yang knew very well that there was no such thing as a paradise. Could it be that this Tribulation Sword Master was deceived? But who could deceive this Tribulation Sword Master? Could it be the Sword Spirit? Chu Yang was deep in thought. His consciousness sank into the tribulation space. The Sword Spirit was still cultivating in seclusion. It could be seen that his body was becoming more and more solid. Chu Yang was puzzled. If there was such a thing, then the Sword Spirit would definitely deceive him. But until now, the Sword Spirit had not mentioned it. Outside, the Dharma Supreme's hoarse voice sounded. His voice was still indifferent, but there was a hint of reluctance in it. At this time, the old fool asked, "Big Brother, when you go to the new world, can I still follow you? But I can't bear to leave you." Ha 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 ha. At this point, the Dharma Supreme suddenly laughed maniacally. He laughed so hard that he bent over and tears rolled down his cheeks. He had always been calm and composed. Even when he was narrating such a tragic story, such a cruel betrayal, he was still so calm and composed that it was frightening. However, when he spoke of this little, he suddenly laughed crazily and bitterly. Wu Qianqian couldn't help but shed tears as she listened to his miserable laughter. At that point, I still can't believe that boss would harm him. I can't even bear to part with him and still want to follow him. I still want to... Ha! The Dharma Supreme laughed maniacally as blood spurted out from his mouth. He wiped it off with his hand and continued to laugh uncontrollably as tears streamed down his face. He laughed heartily, trembling as he looked at Bu Luqing. He grinned, completely disregarding his image, and gritted his teeth as he said stubbornly, "You have brothers? I have one too. I have one too. I have more than you. Do you believe it? Do you believe it?" "Pa, how can I not believe it?" Bu Luqing sighed. The feelings of tribulation have always moved the heavens and the earth. Part of the strength of the Tribulation Sword's master in mending the heavens is this feeling of not giving up even in life and death. The Dharma Supreme laughed out loud. He wiped his tears and laughed heartily. At that time, all the brothers didn't say anything. Only Boss said, "Little, I'm afraid I can't bring you along." Little was very disappointed and said, "Why?" Boss said, "Because after I use your soul to mend the heavens, you will die. But I'm still alive, so I can't bring you along." At that time, Little was very disappointed. Yes, you didn't hear wrongly. He was very disappointed. He wasn't afraid, he was just disappointed. He said, "Boss, I can't bear to part with all of you." Boss said, "You don't have to be reluctant, because all of you will die together." At this point, the Dharma Supreme finally stopped. He was panting heavily, and beads of perspiration were slowly seeping out from his smooth forehead. When he was fighting with Bu Luqing earlier, the sky was spinning and the earth was spinning, but he didn't sweat or pant heavily. However, at this moment, he was panting heavily just by telling a story. We all fell silent. Then Diwu Chang asked, "Boss, when did you find out about this?" When this question came out, everyone's eyes lit up. "Time is too important." Boss said, "From the moment I obtained the first fragment of the Sword of Calamity, I already knew." When he said this, all the brothers suddenly stopped talking. They were all panting heavily, very, very heavily. After pausing for a long time, second brother asked a question. At that time, I remember very clearly that second brother seemed to have used all his strength to ask that question. He even stuttered a little and his voice was very trembling. He asked, "So, all these years, you've been lying to us? You brought the brothers to fight together, brought us up to the heavens, just so you could use our souls to mend the heavens. Then, you would collect the power of merit from the mend of the heavens and go to another paradise? All this time, you have been lying to us, using us?" When second brother said this, all the brothers pricked up their ears. Although everyone already knew that this was a foregone conclusion, they still wanted to hear Boss say no. Because then, even if we died, we wouldn't be so sad. Boss sighed and said, "I also know that I have let all of you down, but I really want to go to that world. The temptation to me is too great. It has been hard on all of you to follow me for so many years, to serve me, to risk your lives for me, to do everything for me. But I have been lying to all of you, using all of you. I also feel very guilty in my heart. Really, I feel that I have let all of you down." When he said this, everyone was stunned. Then, at that time, I seemed to have heard the sound of my heart breaking very clearly. I cried. Before that, I only had joy, only satisfaction and happiness. I had never cried before, but that day, after hearing this sentence, I cried. I sobbed. Boss continued to say emotionally, "Second brother, for me, when the steel knife came slashing at you, you threw yourself on my back and blocked the knife for me, almost dying. Third brother, for me, you once tested the poison with your own body and was poisoned to the point that you couldn't even speak for half a year. Fourth brother, for me, you didn't hesitate to use yourself as a hostage and allowed yourself to be captured without a fight. You were slashed 10 times on your body and your blood almost ran dry, just so that I could live, so that I could escape. Fifth brother, for me, you divined the fate of the heavens and your hair turned white overnight. Sixth brother, I know that you like Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao is your childhood sweetheart, I also know that. That day, when I pretended that I didn't know what happened between the two of you and pretended to be drunk and told you that I liked Xiao Xiao, you immediately backed out and went to the brothel the next day. You didn't hesitate to break Xiao Xiao's heart to fulfill my wish and let her marry me. This caused you to be unhappy all your life and never get married. Even when carrying on the family line, you took in a foster. Seventh brother, brothers, I will never forget all of your kindness to me. I am proud to have all of you. Untouched. Really. Eldest brother recounted the merits of our brothers one by one. He spoke very emotionally and even shed tears. But at that time, I only felt a bone-chilling coldness in my heart. I don't know what they were thinking, but I think that since my heart had already turned cold, they may not be as warm as me. The Dharma Supreme grinned and laughed as if he was crying. If it were me, my heart would have turned cold too. Our brothers have done so many things for you, risking their lives for you, risking their lives for you, giving up everything for you, giving up everything for you. From an unknown person to the current master of the heavens, you actually want to kill them without a second word. Moreover, you want to use the lives of our brothers to exchange for a bright future for yourself. Is this fucker still human? Moreover, you even used despicable means to take advantage of our brother's feelings to steal someone else's fiancée. Bu Luqing couldn't believe that such a person actually existed in this world. There was only one thing that he was curious about. How could such a person become the master of the Calamity Sword? How could he have such hot-blooded men to help him? How could he have such sincere feelings for him? This was something that was completely unimaginable. Not only was Bu Luqing puzzled, Zi Sheqing and Wu Qianqian were also extremely puzzled. As the master of the Calamity Sword, Chu Yang was even more puzzled. This was too incomprehensible. To be able to do this, how deep must one's heart be to be able to deceive others for their entire life? Then eldest brother said, "Brothers, since you have already done so much for me, now I only ask of you to do one last thing for me. Give me your souls and fulfill my wish. We will be good brothers for all eternity." Bu Luqing couldn't help but curse, "What kind of beast is this?" The Dharma Supreme smiled faintly. When Bu Luqing got angry, the Dharma Supreme regained his usual calmness and said, "Eldest brother said it once." Seeing that the brothers didn't say anything, he continued, "Actually, I didn't let all of you down. I brought all of you up to the heavens and helped you build big clans. Do you know? Your grandchildren will live and reproduce in the heavens for 10,000 years. 10,000 years. What kind of clan can have 10,000 years of glory? Although I don't claim credit for all these, if all of you didn't become a tribulation, where would such an opportunity come from? What's more, when have you ever lacked my help in every step you took? When did all of you lack my elixirs? My heavy elixirs, each of you ate more than one, right? My incomplete heavy elixirs, each of you should have at least 100 of them, right? Those elixirs that can increase your cultivation were all given by me. If not for me, how could all of you reach 7th grade supreme martial artist at such a young age? This is enough for all of you to be proud of. All I want now is for you to give up your souls. Why are all of you not saying anything for such a small matter? In the past, when all of you risked your lives for me, it was much more dangerous than now, but all of you were willing to do it. At that time, all of you could have died at any time. Why are all of you so unwilling now? Brothers, could it be that all of you have a change of heart because of glory and wealth? Chapter 1042. The Dharma Supreme's expression gradually returned to its initial calmness. Spiritual energy started to gather in his innate meridians. He slowly straightened his back, with his hands behind his back and his long hair fluttering in the wind. Gazing at the dawn that was about to break, he said indifferently, "Brother Bu, although you are my enemy, thank you for our talk tonight." Bu Luqing smiled bitterly. "Actually, you should have talked to Wu Jueqing." The Dharma Supreme smiled and shook his head lightly. "Sad people can't talk to sad people. I also have a desire to confide in him, and so does he. When the two of us are together, no matter how you listen to it, it's just the same story. When you know about yourself, you also know about him. What else is there to talk about?" He laughed and took a step forward. His figure was still in front of him, but his real body was already a few thousand feet away. "Brother Bu, I'll wait for you to come and find me any time for a battle to the death. If you don't come and find me, I'll find you after I recover." Bu Luqing didn't give chase. He let out a long sigh and stomped his feet. Then he suddenly flew up and disappeared without a trace. With a swoosh, 3 people appeared at the place where Bu Luqing and the Dharma Supreme were talking. Chu Yang, Zi Sheqing and Wu Qianqian. Chu Yang frowned and let out a long sigh. So, this is the Tribulation Sword Master. Zi Xiecheng also said meaningfully, so, this is the Tribulation Sword Master. She turned and looked at Chu Yang. Chu Yang, what did you think of? Chu Yang took a deep breath and smiled indifferently. Let's wait and see. Zi Xiecheng laughed and said, but I may not be able to see it. Chu Yang said indifferently, you will see it in the future. It's useless to say anything now. I promise that I won't treat my brothers like this. Do you believe me? For 10,000 years, the 8 generations of Tribulation Sword Masters have been like this. How can you, Chu Yang, be an exception? But I, Chu Yang, must be an exception. I must be an exception. As someone who has died once, I'd rather die than do such despicable, shameless, and dirty things. Zi Xiecheng smiled meaningfully. Wu Qianqian opened her eyes and looked at the two in confusion. She didn't understand what they were talking about. Let's go. Let's go back. Zi Xiecheng smiled faintly and was about to grab the two of them and fly back. At this moment, the sky suddenly brightened. The sky was about to brighten. However, Zi Xiecheng's hand, which was about to grab the two of them, suddenly loosened. She looked at the sky with a solemn expression. Chu Yang and Wu Qianqian couldn't help but look up. At the edge of the sky, where the morning sun rose, a purple cloud was moving rapidly. In almost an instant, it was above their heads. Chu Yang was astonished. He had never seen a cloud that could fly so fast. In the blink of an eye, dark clouds suddenly gathered overhead, followed by lightning and thunder. The light that had just appeared on the horizon was immediately suppressed. The sound of thunder was like a dull drumbeat, constantly beating in the sky above their heads. The three of them felt oppressed and heavy in their hearts at the same time, as if something bad was going to happen. The clouds were getting lower and lower. The pressure was getting heavier and heavier. Zi Xiecheng's expression became more and more solemn. Chu Yang muttered, "What is this? Is this the power of heaven?" Zi Xiecheng bit her lips and silently looked at the clouds that were getting lower and lower, as if they had condensed into a solid form. Suddenly, she struck Wu Qianqian's neck with her palm. Wu Qianqian fainted without making a sound. "What are you doing?" Chu Yang was shocked. Zi Xiecheng looked at Chu Yang with a complicated expression and said softly, "They are here to find me. The existence of my Beidu Tieba Qihang has affected the balance of the heavens. And I used the heavenly sun-purple cloud in my attack just now. I was discovered. This matter cannot be known to Qianqian." Chu Yang was shocked and tongue-tied. "Then what should we do?" Zi Xiecheng took a breath and said, "For experts like us, no matter which plane we are in, we can't destroy the balance of the plane. If we just stay there, there won't be any problems. But once we reveal enough power to destroy the balance, we will be punished. If I were a native it would be easier, but I didn't go. Anbu Luqing and the Dharma Supreme are the top figures of this heavens. So, when I intervened in their battle, it became such a situation." Chu Yang was shocked. "Then why didn't you say so earlier? Since you already knew, why did you still intervene?" Zi Xiecheng's expression was a little complicated. She said, "I have to leave sooner or later. Now, it's just a little earlier than expected. The only difference is that I can leave on my own, or I can be caught by someone." Chu Yang raised his eyebrows. "Caught? Usually, when there is such a situation, you will be caught and not be put in a spot. It's just that you are not allowed to stay here any longer." Zi Xiecheng looked deeply at Chu Yang and said softly, "Chu Yang, you must take care. You must take care." "What if I don't let you go?" Chu Yang asked in a low voice. Zi Xiecheng's delicate body trembled, and she smiled bitterly. "You won't let me go? This is heaven's authority." Chu Yang sneered. "In my life, I have always been going against heaven. Heaven's authority? So what if I offend it one more time?" Zi Xiecheng sighed in her heart. How could she not know that she would be caught if she revealed her true strength today? But she didn't dare to stay any longer, especially beside Chu Yang. Zi Xiecheng had never spent so much time with a young man in her life. And she had never appreciated and loved any other young man as much as she did Chu Yang. Since the Black Blood Forest, she took pleasure in torturing Chu Yang. Although she was also collecting the Tao state energy, she also wanted to see how far this stubborn young man could go. But she didn't expect that no matter what, as long as it was a battle, Chu Yang would be full of energy. No matter how cruel it was, no matter how many times he failed, Chu Yang's fighting spirit would only be higher and would never diminish. The more he was defeated, the braver he became. Along the way, Zi Xiecheng also continuously squeezed Chu Yang's bottom line. She even thought, when I force out your last bit of potential, can you still be so stubborn? But all the way to Tianji City, even though Chu Yang was exhausted and battered every day, he had never once said a single word of apology. The most terrible thing was that even when he said soft words, he was actually teasing her. Zi Xiecheng became more and more unconvinced and her attacks became more and more ruthless. Chu Yang's resistance also increased and became more and more tenacious. Until Chu Yang reached Tianji City, the two of them fought more frequently. Zi Xiecheng couldn't squeeze out all of Chu Yang's potential. Until that time when Chu Yang was breaking through, Zi Xiecheng had no choice but to use the cruelest method to help him. Zi Xiecheng absolutely believed that even a supreme martial artist wouldn't be able to withstand such a cruel punishment. But Chu Yang came up with his own idea and thought of a way to torture her. But he managed to withstand it and even broke through. At that moment, Zi Xiecheng almost shed tears. It was at that time that Zi Xiecheng felt that her state of mind had changed. In the past, she was a loner. Other than wanting to repay a debt of gratitude and wanting to see her benefactor and say thank you, she never had any other concerns. His heart was like flowing water that rose and fell with the flow of the water. His will was like the white clouds that rolled freely, free and unrestrained. But from that day onwards, her heart seemed to have an additional concern. And this concern was Chu Yang. She even had a thought, I don't want Chu Yang to go through such pain again. That was why she helped Chu Yang do this and that. She even brought Chu Yang out today to let him watch the Supreme Martial Artist Peak battle to pave the way for his future and to reduce his bottleneck. But after that period of time, Zi Xiecheng felt that she couldn't let go. Sometimes she would even dream about it. At this moment, Zi Xiecheng finally felt that something was wrong. That was why she suddenly decided to expose her strength today and wanted to leave this place. He was going to leave anyway. It didn't matter if he left sooner or later. Since that was the case, it was better to do it sooner rather than later. Although she hadn't replenished her Tao state energy, what she had now was enough for her to withstand the heavenly wrath once and then enter the great Tao void to replenish her Tao state energy. If she continued to stay, she was afraid that she would feel even more uncomfortable. If she wanted to stay but couldn't bear to leave after replenishing her Tao state energy, that would be truly uncomfortable. That was why she didn't hesitate to attract the heavenly wrath's punishment to save herself from this emotional whirlpool. Although it would be very painful, Zi Xiecheng really didn't want to let herself be immersed in this emotional whirlpool. But just now, Zi Xiecheng heard Chu Yang say, "What if I don't let you go?" When he heard this, his heart suddenly felt sour, but it also felt sweet. For a moment, she actually had mixed feelings. But she immediately controlled herself and didn't say anything. "You will be punished for going against the heavens," Zi Xiecheng said softly. She gently reached out her hand and touched Chu Yang's face. She said softly, "After I leave, don't miss me. Live well and live your life well." Chu Yang stared at her and said irritably, "Didn't you hear? I mean, what if I don't let you go? What can I do to make you stay?" He actually started to question her. If it was in normal times, Zi Xiecheng would usually give him a slap and then kick him on his butt to make him fly in the air again. But now, Zi Xiecheng felt a wave of satisfaction in her heart. She actually felt a little sweet towards this rough reprimand. She bit her lips and her eyes were filled with a satisfied smile. She said softly, "There's no other way." Chu Yang was stunned. A thunderclap resounded in the sky. A majestic sound of thunder rolled over. It seemed to be coming from afar. It gradually resounded above their heads, deafening their ears. At the same time, a huge golden hand suddenly stretched out from the clouds in the sky. It carried a majestic aura that could not be defied as it violently grabbed down. A voice said indifferently in the sky, How dare you, lowly servant? How dare you break the balance of space? Quickly follow me back to be interrogated. Zi Xiecheng's face turned pale and her lips trembled. Then, she looked deeply at Chu Yang's face and suddenly grabbed Chu Yang and Wu Qianqian and threw them far away. Chapter 1043. Wu Qianqian flew far away and landed on a flat ground. She fainted and scathed. Go back! Zi Xiecheng stood on a high ground, her white clothes and hair flying. She shouted at Chu Yang. Chu Yang turned a deaf ear to her and ran back. Zi Xiecheng's gaze was complicated. She bit her plump lips and looked at Chu Yang's running figure. There seemed to be tears in her eyes. The huge golden hand in the sky suddenly descended and grabbed at Zi Xiecheng. Zi Xiecheng did not move. She just looked at Chu Yang's running figure in a daze. She did not dodge the huge hand in the sky. It was about to grab Zi Xiecheng's shoulder, and Chu Yang was still 400 feet away. The huge golden hand emitted a bright golden light and covered Zi Xiecheng's body. Zi Xiecheng's face showed a trace of pain. She slowly rose up and opened her mouth toward Chu Yang, who was running on the ground. She seemed to be saying something. Chu Yang could not hear it. Looking at her mouth, she seemed to be saying, "Take care." Chu Yang felt a sudden pain in his heart. He howled like a wounded beast. He looked up to the sky and roared. With a swoosh, he pulled out Calamity Sword. Then, he let out a furious roar and soared into the sky. At this moment, Chu Yang used all his strength, all his potential and all his willpower to launch the most powerful attack since he started his cultivation journey. The long sword instantly formed a huge storm. Chu Yang roared hoarsely. One ray of cold light pierces 10,000 feet. What harm is there in slaughtering the whole world? A sharp will buried deep does not change. A gathering of wind and clouds is the emperor. A sword blade that has been famous for all eternity. Wind and clouds move from east to west. The sun and the moon are my lightning generals. Splitting mountains and breaking peaks, the sky is blood red. A blade that crosses the sky for 10,000 years. This road leads to the netherworld. Cutting off the sentimental traveler. Everything ends where the blade is. Iron walls and bronze walls fight without end. What more can one ask for in life? Clouds gather together. You have no worries when I'm alive. The crazy sword aura formed a torrent. They shot up from the ground in a majestic manner, leaving behind a dazzling rainbow in the air. They carried an indestructible will and a determination that would rather die than regret as they shot towards the giant golden hand in the air. You want to leave? I won't stop you. But you have to leave by yourself. We can't be captured. Chu Yang shouted crazily. The sword tip, sword edge, sword blade, and sword guard of the Calamity Sword all let out excited sword cries. This was the first time the four parts of the sword had worked together to attack. A piercingly cold, murderous aura instantly froze the vast sky. Zi Xiecheng's expression changed drastically. She struggled with all her might and shouted, "Don't!" It actually broke free from the golden hand and flew down. In midair, it seemed to be surprised that Zi Xiecheng was able to break free from its grasp. The golden hand paused for a moment before continuing to grab her. However, he saw Chu Yang's sword light attacking him like a thunderbolt. He couldn't help but exclaim. Then, he turned his big hand and slapped it towards Chu Yang. Then, he said in a dignified voice, "You're just a grain of rice, yet you dare to offend the heavenly might." That Zi Xiecheng let out a shrill cry and shot out like a bolt of lightning. It was obvious that she was burning with anxiety. She was not even a match for this huge golden hand. Chu Yang was just a speck of light that was the size of a grain of rice, and he actually attacked it. Wasn't this courting death? However, Chu Yang was already flying at full speed towards her. That huge golden hand also passed by Zi Xiecheng. It grabbed at Chu Yang fiercely. Zi Xiecheng couldn't make it in time. In a moment of desperation, she shouted, "I'll go back with you. I'm willing to accept the punishment. Don't hurt him." I was going to leave, but I don't have enough Tao state power to break the barrier. Did you hear that? I'm willing to go back with you. However, that huge golden hand was completely indifferent. It continued to grab at Chu Yang. That voice said indifferently, "Those who offend the heavenly might die." Zi Xiecheng instantly panicked and felt heartache. "Chu Yang, I told you not to be rash. But you—" Her body was still charging forward, but her mind seemed to have gone blank, as if she had lost consciousness. Chu Yang roared furiously. The 10 moves of the Tribulation Sword technique merged into an unprecedented torrent and hit the huge golden hand in an instant. The huge golden hand paused for a moment and pushed forward. In the clouds, that voice suddenly let out an "ah." It wasn't painful, but it was full of shock. Then, the huge golden hand suddenly shrank back. Even its strength seemed to have disappeared. Chu Yang's Tribulation Sword came into contact with the huge golden hand. With a bang, Chu Yang felt as if he had directly hit a huge mountain made of star steel. The rebounding force in that instant made Chu Yang cry out and fly back. However, with this contact, that huge golden hand suddenly retracted its strength. How sharp was the Tribulation Sword? Not to mention the power of 10 moves of the Tribulation Sword technique at the same time? Countless strands of Tribulation Sword chi exploded on the giant hand. With a boom, a finger of the giant golden hand was severed from its body. The finger fell down and landed on the ground. It actually smashed out. A deep hole lay at the bottom of the hole. In midair, that voice let out another "eh," and the huge golden hand stopped in midair. Zi Xiecheng rushed over and saw Chu Yang lying on the ground with a pale face, bleeding from his 7 orifices. He was already unconscious and on the verge of death. Looking at his injuries, it was obvious that his internal organs were severely damaged. Zi Xiecheng bit her lip and hurriedly treated his injuries. She was worried about that huge golden hand. As she channeled her energy into Chu Yang, she looked up and said, "Please don't move for the time being. Let me treat his injuries first. Okay?" There was actually a hint of pleading in her voice. For Zi Xiecheng, who had been strong all her life, this was the first time she spoke to someone like this. The voice in midair didn't speak, but that huge golden hand stopped in midair and didn't move. After a long while, that deep voice said, "Your Tao state energy is insufficient? You can't break through the space barrier?" As Zi Xiecheng treated Chu Yang's injuries, she said, "Yes." That voice muttered to himself, "But why is this little one holding the Emperor's sword? Could he be the Emperor?" Suddenly, he snorted and said, "Then leave this place immediately after you finish collecting the Tao state energy and replenish it." Zi Xiecheng was overjoyed and said, "Okay. Once I finish collecting, I'll leave immediately." That voice snorted and said, "I'll keep an eye on you. If you don't leave by then, don't blame me for being merciless." Suddenly, with a whoosh, the dark clouds shrank back. Then, the dark clouds that filled the skies suddenly rose up and disappeared. In the far east, a red sun rose. Everything returned to normal, as if nothing had happened at all. Zi Xiecheng was actually stunned. What was going on? This messenger, why did he leave so easily? He had come with such great momentum, yet he had actually given up and left. Not only that, he had even left behind half of his finger. This was too unbelievable. Such a powerful person actually left after being hurt by Chu Yang, who was like an ant in his eyes. As Zi Xiecheng hurried to treat Chu Yang's injuries, she carefully thought about this and couldn't understand. Suddenly, she remembered a sentence that the voice had said, "But this little one, why is he holding the Emperor's sword? Could it be that he went to—" Suddenly, her heart trembled. Could it be because of Chu Yang? The Emperor's sword? What emperor? What level of emperor was he? Chu Yang actually held the Emperor's sword. What did this sentence mean? If this was the case, the one who folded the heavens continent back then must be this emperor? And the Calamity Sword was this Emperor's sword? All the previous masters of the Calamity Sword had always— Zi Xiecheng was lost in her thoughts. Her heart was very confused. With a muffled groan, Chu Yang woke up. Before he opened his eyes, he suddenly sat up. But it affected his injuries and he couldn't help but groan in pain. He opened his eyes and saw Zi Xiecheng in front of him. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. "You weren't captured? He was chased away by you?" Zi Xiecheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She revealed a gentle smile and said softly, "He was chased away by you." Chu Yang laughed and shook his head. "Don't I know my own limits? I don't have such great capabilities." Suddenly, he blinked his eyes and said shamelessly, "Big Sister Z, your voice was so gentle just now. It gave me goosebumps." Z Xiecheng was angry and wanted to laugh at the same time. She raised her eyebrows and glared at him. She stretched out her hand and grabbed his ear. With a crack, she twisted it. "If you know your own limits, why did you not care about your life and bump into it? Do you know that you will die if you do that?" Chu Yang grimaced. "Ouch, ouch, ouch, say it if it hurts." Z Xiecheng added more strength and roared fiercely. Chu Yang turned his head in the direction where his ear was being twisted. He grinned and scratched his head. He laughed. "It's only after I bumped into it that I realized my own limits. Before I bumped into it, I didn't." Z Xiecheng wanted to flare up and twist his ears again, but for some unknown reason, she suddenly felt like laughing. She let out a chuckle. Chu Yang felt as if he had been pardoned. "Big sister, quickly let go of your hand. Don't tire yourself out. That would be my fault." Z Xiecheng finally let go of her hand. She smiled and said, "If you're afraid of pain, behave yourself in the future." Chu Yang rolled a few steps away. He bowed and said with a bitter face, Yes, I won't dare to do it in the future." "Why you like my mother?" Z Xiecheng said angrily, "What did you say?" Chu Yang covered his head and fled. After a round of laughter, it was as if the previous incident didn't happen at all. Neither of them mentioned that Z Xiecheng was leaving. But both of them seemed to feel that there was something more in their hearts, something more changed, and the relationship between the two of them seemed to be a little different. But Chu Yang was wise and didn't continue to think about it. Z Xiecheng also suppressed this feeling deep in her heart. Both of them knew that it was impossible for them to be with each other. Chu Yang laughed and was about to carry Wu Qianqian back. After taking a few steps, he suddenly realized that there was a big pit in front of him. Chu Yang went forward to take a look and saw that there was actually golden light inside. Chapter 1044. Z Xiecheng pursed her lips and said, "I don't know what kind of luck you have to have such a good thing. Quickly go down and bring it up. This is your spoils of war." "My spoils of war?" Chu Yang was surprised. When the golden finger fell down, he had already fainted. Naturally, he didn't know that he could create such an earth-shattering result. Although the other party went easy on him, Chu Yang picked it up with a poof and immediately groaned at the bottom of the pit. "Fuck, my injuries haven't healed yet. I can't move it. What is this thing? It's too heavy." Then he threw an incomplete version of the heavy pill into his mouth. Z Xiecheng couldn't help but laugh. She said, "If you can't move it, then you can stay down here. I'll go and get Qianqian." With a whoosh, she left. "This woman," Chu Yang secretly scolded. Z Xiecheng pretended not to hear and left. Chu Yang sat down below and mobilized his internal energy to heal his injuries. Then, he suddenly realized that when he was mobilizing his internal energy, he suddenly felt that there was an increase in the amount of internal energy in the air. The pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth rushed into his mouth and nose, almost suffocating him. Where did such rich and pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth come from? Chu Yang opened his eyes in shock, only to see rich spiritual energy coming out of the golden thing. As he breathed, the spiritual energy turned into two long dragons and rushed towards his nostrils. It wasn't a waste at all. The serious injuries in his body were almost instantly healed by the incomplete version of the heavy pill. When this spiritual energy rushed in, he actually recovered instantly and his cultivation even improved. It was only a few breaths. "Fuck!" Chu Yang jumped up in shock. "What good thing is this? It's so awesome." He hurried over. He pulled it and looked at it. This thing was the size of a millstone, but it was heavy and weighed a total of 7,000 to 8,000 kilograms. Chu Yang scratched his head and walked around this thing. He said to himself, "Why does it look like the pad of a finger? This piece on the edge, could it be a fingernail? But where can there be such a big hand?" Suddenly, he remembered the big hand that grabbed Z Xiecheng before he fainted. He couldn't help but tremble. Could this be from that big hand? He recalled Zi Shecheng's words, "Those are your spoils of war." Chu Yang cursed. His eyes widened. "Am I really that awesome? You actually managed to chop off a piece of this huge hand?" Chu Yang felt a lingering fear in his heart as he thought of the world-destroying might of that big hand. He felt that his calves were about to cramp up. His legs felt weak and his back felt cold. He sat down on the ground with a plop sound. Beads of cold sweat continuously appeared on his forehead. "Oh my God!" Minister Chu muttered. Chu Yang gazed at this half-severed finger as he pondered. Looking at the power of the golden hand, his sword was powerful. But it shouldn't have hurt him. Why did he chop off a piece of it? There was something strange about this matter. This half of the gold finger ended along with Chu Yang. Surprisingly, the spiritual aura on it no longer emanated, and it returned to being a quiet, millstone-sized, half-finger. Chu Yang stretched out his hand and tried to poke it. He discovered that this thing actually had a faint elasticity. It doesn't feel like human flesh. Chu Yang scratched his head in confusion. At this moment, Zi Shecheng's telepathic voice rang in his ears. "Keep the gold finger. We're going back." Chu Yang responded with an "oh." He hurriedly kept the gold finger into the space. As soon as he opened the space, he saw the sword spirit asking excitedly, "What good stuff did you get? Why is it so powerful? I could feel it even when I was in seclusion." Chu Yang rolled his eyes. Then he heard the sword spirit exclaim, "Oh my God! Isn't this a divine bone?" Chu Yang was startled. He asked, "What divine bone?" The sword spirit looked at the gold finger greedily and murmured, "Divine bone." "Oh my God!" Annoyed, Chu Yang picked up this half-severed finger and threw it into the space. It hit the sword spirit squarely in the face. The sword spirit nimbly fell to the ground with a loud thud. His mouth was stuffed by the gold finger, but he still managed to mutter, "Oh, the Star Lake. I'm so happy." Chu Yang was speechless. The sword spirit finally moved it away from his face. Suddenly he cried, "But I'm in pain too. What are you in pain about?" Chu Yang wondered. "Didn't you just say you're so happy?" The sword spirit said painfully, "I said I saw the divine bone and I'm so happy. But I'm cultivating my spirit now, so I can't absorb the power in it. I'm in pain." Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said, "I've been worried that you'll steal it. You can't absorb it? That's great." The sword spirit was speechless. He stopped talking. His silence piqued Chu Yang's interest. "What's the use of this divine bone?" The sword spirit said, "It's very useful. You can cultivate it. The spiritual energy emanating from it is the most original spiritual energy of heaven and earth. This large piece is probably enough for you to absorb for a while. Also, after you've absorbed the spiritual energy, you can refine this divine bone a little and it'll become a divine weapon. Its hardness and sharpness can be called the best in this heaven apart from the tribulation sword." "So good." Chu Yang was excited. "You can go to sleep now. I'm in seclusion." The sword spirit was speechless and defended himself. He rolled his eyes and continued his seclusion. Chu Yang jumped out of the pit and saw Wu Qianqian looking at him curiously. She asked, "Chu Yang, why did you jump into the pit?" Before Chu Yang could answer, Zi Shecheng said, "He was smacked down by me." Wu Qianqian was shocked. The three of them packed up. Zi Shecheng grabbed one of them with each hand and tore open the space with the other. She stepped back. Feng Yuro and Yu Lingxue had already searched the entire Tianji city but couldn't find Wu Qianqian. Both of them knew that as long as Zi Shecheng said Wu Qianqian was fine, then she was really fine. But if they didn't see their disciple alive in front of them, they wouldn't be at ease. Seeing that the sun had already risen, the couple sat in Jiaxiu building, speechless. "Where did she go?" Feng Yuro asked. "Did the elder lie to us?" Yu Lingxue said, "Definitely not. With that elder's cultivation, she probably wouldn't be interested in lying to us." Although he said so, his eyes were still looking at the door. Feng Yuro said, "That's true." At this moment, a clear and cold voice said, "Catch your disciple." Then there was a whoosh. With a whoosh, a figure flew in through the window from the sky and landed in Feng Yuro's arms. Feng Yuro was overjoyed. She said, "Thank you, Elder." Zi Xiecheng said, "You're welcome. Goodbye." Feng Yuro hurried out with Wu Qianqian in her arms. Elder, I still have something to ask you." When she came out, there was no one in front of her. She couldn't help but feel lost. Yu Lingxue comforted her from behind. "This elder doesn't have any ill intentions towards us. We'll have a chance to meet her. Since she said so, she'll definitely have a way to help us. Besides, we've been here for so many years, why would we care about a little more time?" Feng Yuro sighed and said, "You don't know. Every time I see other women carrying their children happily, I'm so envious." At this moment, Wu Qianqian in her arms moaned and woke up. "Are you all right, Qianqian? What happened?" Feng Yuro asked with concern. At the same time, she checked her disciple's body. After circulating her internal energy, she was relieved. Her disciple's clothes were neat and tidy, and she was still a virgin. She definitely didn't encounter those terrible things. Wu Qianqian said, "I don't know either. It's just that." From Wu Qianqian's mouth, this matter was of course all the fault of the Lan clan. Moreover, after she was drugged, she was saved by Zi Xiecheng. Then, Zi Xiecheng brought her to look for Chu Yang. It was Chu Yang who went through a lot of trouble to successfully detoxify her without ruining her reputation, and so on. This Chu Yang is really a good child. He's really a kind and honest perfected lord. Feng Yuro sighed. "Who are you talking about? Chu Yang?" Yu Lingxue frowned and said, "Which Chu Yang? How many Chu Yangs do you know?" Feng Yuro frowned and asked. "I know. The sweetheart of Ning Tianya and Bu Liuqing's disciple. His name is Chu Yang." Yu Lingxue's expression was strange. He said, "Could it be him? The sweetheart of Ning Tianya and Bu Liuqing's disciple?" Wu Qianqian was stunned. Was there such a coincidence? Who was Ning Tianya and Bu Liuqing's disciple? Immediately, under the questioning of Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro, Wu Qianqian followed what she had discussed with Zi Xiecheng. Her answer was flawless. Moreover, she also said that the two 8th-grade martial saints of the Yi clan had once ambushed her at the Shueyu Lake and wanted to kill her. And of course, she was saved by Chu Yang that time. The two venerables were filled with boundless gratitude towards Chu Yang and at the same time, were furious at the Yi clan. Zi Xiecheng knew that Feng Yuro was going to ask her about having children. But now, after Chu Yang's explanation, she was most afraid that Moon Breeze would ask her about having children. How could she not quickly escape? If he was caught and asked about this matter, it would be extremely embarrassing. He wouldn't even have a place to put his face. Besides, she was still carrying Chu Yang with her other hand. Now that she had already sent Wu Qianqian down, it seemed inappropriate to carry Chu Yang with one hand. She might as well hug him. Chu Yang was in luck this time. He only felt that he was suddenly surrounded by a soft and fragrant body. Minister Chu nestled happily in Zi Xiecheng's arms, pretending to be asleep. He was even murmuring in his sleep. His face, however, intentionally or unintentionally, moved closer to Zi Xiecheng's towering chest. Finally, touched happiness, young Master Chu almost fainted. So big, so firm, so soft. Just as he was intoxicated, he was suddenly thrown to the ground with a bang. Immediately after, he was kicked in the butt and fell flat on his face. He only heard Zi Xiecheng scolding, "Stinky hooligan." Chu Yang smiled embarrassedly. When he opened his eyes, he saw that they had already returned to the Orchard Palace. But in the next moment, Chu Yang and Zi Xiecheng were both stunned. Why was the door of the Orchard Palace wide open? It was so noisy inside. From the looks of it, it was as if there were robbers. Chapter 1045. The courtyard was in a mess. Chu Yang was not in her room. Chu Yang rushed to the door and forced himself to calm down. At this moment, Zi Xiecheng felt that Chu Yang had turned from a ball of fire into a ball of ice and snow. The intense change in emotions caused Chu Yang's face to turn pale. He slowly walked into the room and looked around. He saw that Chu Lu's door was already broken. but there were no signs of disturbance in the room. Her is a smart child. She did not struggle and followed the other party obediently. She knew that it was useless to struggle. Chu Yang looked at the furnishings in the room and said softly. Zi Xiecheng frowned slightly, then frowned slightly, and finally, her eyebrows were tightly knitted. At this moment, a clear murderous aura was emitted from her body. In an instant, it filled the entire Tianji city. If anything happens to Luo, no one in the entire Tianji city will be able to survive. Zi Xiecheng's eyes shone brightly and she said lightly, I will massacre the entire city. There is a 50% chance that something will happen to Luo, and a 50% chance that nothing will happen to her. Chu Yang frowned. It should be done by people from the big clans. They are here to find me and to settle scores with me. When I was not around, they kidnapped Luo. They only have one motive, and that is to force me to go over. So, Luo was just implicated by me. Chu Yang smiled coldly. But I still overestimated the people from the big clans. With their status, they actually dared to kidnap a weak little girl. This made my impression of them drop to a freezing point. Since they kidnapped Luo, they must have left some clues for me to find. Otherwise, it would be useless to kidnap her. Chu Yang looked at Luo's room. It was empty. After looking at every inch of the room, he walked out and went to his own room. In his own room, it was as if even the ground had been overturned. It was a complete mess. They are looking for the treasures used to bribe me, Chu Yang said quietly. On the table, there was a piece of paper. Chu Yang's eyes flashed and he walked in. He picked it up. When the sun rose in the east, I came to see that you were not around. Your sister is at my place right now. Lord Chu, you can come to Xiaoxiao to bring her back. It was a very plain few words that didn't even express any meaning. There was no purpose. He even said politely, your sister is with me. If you come, you can bring it back. However, Chu Yang knew that things were far from that simple. The note did not even reveal his identity. Zi Xiecheng frowned. He muttered, Xiaoxiao? Suddenly he turned around and was about to leave. Wait. Chu Yang calmly stopped her. It's too rash to go over like this. If he's not there, it's useless even if you kill everyone. Then what should we do? Zi Xiecheng said angrily. There is only an ordinary little girl now. She has no cultivation at all. How can she stand it? Even if you can't bear it, you still have to. I want a living Luo. I will never allow these people to act out of desperation and let anything happen to Luo because of our carelessness. Chu Yang insipidly said, these people are different from ordinary kidnappers. They are from big clans. Their 10,000 years of foundation was not to be trifled with, and they would not be easily threatened. If we force them into a corner, it's not impossible for them to break up. We can't take this risk. Then tell me, what should we do? Zi Xiecheng took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. I'll go over and take a look at the situation first. Chu Yang said calmly, they must be looking for me to find out the truth of what happened last night. If I go, they will ask me questions, but they won't hurt me for the time being. You follow them later. Once you confirm Luo's location, take action immediately. If you can't confirm it, wait for me to deal with them. Chu Yang said softly. What if it's you? Zi Xiecheng said worriedly. You'll be right behind me. If you discover anything unusual, take action immediately. What's there to be worried about? Chu Yang said insipidly. Okay. Zi Xiecheng gritted her teeth. She agreed. Shasha. At Xiaoxiao's place, there was an old man sitting upright. Other than that, there was no one outside. It was like a dead land. The second grandmasters of the big clans were all gathered here. Even Lan Muxue was sitting here with a pale face and weak body. Yi Di had originally planned to conduct a joint interrogation. However, after this matter was exposed, all the big clans had connections and were involved. Therefore, they all came at the same time. Even the Li clan and the Chun clan wanted to know why they had been taken advantage of. As for the organizer, the Zhuge clan, they even wanted to know the reason. Therefore, everyone came without exception. The commotion is a little too big. Yi Di's thin face revealed a bitter smile. He said, It's just interrogating a little monarch, and they actually mobilized a bunch of old bones like us. This matter is really, Xiao Sei said insipidly, this matter is very important. The big clans have already become enemies because of this matter. If we let others relay the news, who will be at ease? As long as the person relaying the news has a little bit of selfishness, it will lead to a huge error. The impact on the big clans is immeasurable. Therefore, not to mention a monarch, even if it's an ordinary person, we must be present. Everyone nodded. But that little girl shouldn't have been captured. Yi Di sighed. We actually need to kidnap her to do our job? I mercilessly broke the legs of those few people who were sent to do this. What the hell? When I heard about this matter, my face turned red from embarrassment. Everyone laughed out loud. This matter was really not handled properly. Where is that little girl? Hand her over so that we can take a look. She's just a little girl, yet you all scared her to this extent. It's really too much. Ling Fengyun chuckled. Yi Di smiled bitterly. I've already instructed them to bring her over. I haven't seen her either. I heard that she's very pitiful. Everyone laughed. These people were all people of status. Moreover, each of them was an earth-shattering figure who had gone on a rampage in the martial world for many years. If they really wanted to deal with someone, why would they use such a despicable method like kidnapping? Therefore, they were rather conflicted about this matter. They felt that it would damage their reputation. When they come later, no matter what, hand her over first. Li Xiangxi also said, making things difficult for a little girl, your Yi clan is really something. Yi Di snorted. Right at this moment, the wind blew outside. The Dharma Supreme is here. Yi Di stood up at once. Everyone followed suit. Their black robes fluttered. The Dharma Supreme brought two people with him. They floated over like the wind. Dharma Supreme. Everyone bowed together. Then, they glanced at the two people behind the Dharma Supreme and said, Greetings, Guardian Elders. The two people behind the Dharma Supreme were the two killing gods of the law enforcement officers. They were a pair of twin brothers. Once these two people attacked, there would be no survivors. In the recent few thousand years, they had rarely appeared. Unexpectedly, the Dharma Supreme actually brought these two people out today. Yes, I fought with Bu Luqing last night and suffered some minor injuries. The Dharma Supreme smiled lightly. The two of them were worried and insisted on following me. The Dharma Supreme's divine body is more important. Everyone finally realized. So that was the case. However, if the Dharma Supreme was injured, was Bu Luqing injured as well? To this question, everyone was very curious but dared not ask. The Dharma Supreme walked in leisurely and said, What exactly is the matter? You actually sent the news over when I'm not even done with the battle? And it's not just one person? Yi Di laughed bitterly. He said, It's about the battle between the big clans last night. Everyone is feeling uneasy, so we found a witness today to understand the whole story. Sorry to trouble the Dharma Supreme to be a witness. He smiled. If it were during normal times, it would not be a big deal if a few people died in a few battles. However, it is now during the medicine banquet and the Dharma Supreme is about to nourish the heavens. If we delay the important matters and affect the Dharma Supreme's nourishment of the heavens, it would be equivalent to helping the Tribulation Sword Master and completely destroying the fate of the big clans. The Dharma Supreme nodded and said, At such a critical juncture, no mistakes can be made. Then he looked at Lan Muxue and frowned. He said, Muxue, what happened to your injuries? Lan Muxue laughed bitterly and said, Dharma Supreme, I asked for it. I was beaten up. But it was a little too serious. The Dharma Supreme frowned. Was it done by the Moon Breeze couple? Lan Muxue sighed repeatedly when he heard the name of the Moon Breeze couple. He originally wanted to use some tricks this time to strengthen the relationship between them. He did not expect to go for wool and come home shorn, and even offend them completely. Why did he have to do this? Not the Moon Breeze couple? Then who is it? This time, everyone was also puzzled. Lan Muxue was carried here today. To be able to beat up an 8th grade supreme martial artist to such a state, there were not many people in the world who could do it. It was a mysterious woman. Lan Mushue's eyes were filled with fear. I did not have any ability to retaliate at all. According to speculation, the cultivation level of this mysterious woman, even if compared to the combined forces of Ning Tianya and Bu Luqing, she is still much stronger. Huh? Everyone was shocked. There was actually such a person in the world? How was this possible? Lan Mushue laughed bitterly and recounted the events of that day. The Dharma Supreme's eyes flashed and he was deep in thought. In an instant, all the experts of the past tens of thousands of years went through his mind. Finally, he heaved a long sigh of relief. Mushue, if what you said is true, I am afraid you have met a ghost. Because, among the experts of the past tens of thousands of years, there is no one who fits the description of this person. Lan Mushue was stunned. But I have indeed met her. Everyone was deep in thought. At this moment, someone reported from outside, Elder Master, the little girl is here. Yi Di snorted and said, Send her in and get lost quickly. The people outside seemed to tremble for a moment. Then 2 men in black walked in with an adorable little girl. They knelt down and kowtowed twice. Then, they left the girl here and quietly retreated. In an instant, the eyes of Xiao Xiao and the 12 supreme martial artists were all on Chu Lu. Chu Er stood pitifully in the middle. Her gaze was somewhat evasive, like a frightened little rabbit. She was fearful and uneasy, making one want to take pity on her. Chapter 1046. Out of the 12 supreme martial artists, 11 of them had their eyes lit up. Only Lan Mushue hadn't recovered yet and couldn't see anything. The others, including the Dharma Supreme, were all surprised. Or stood there in front of everyone like a slender and elegant bamboo after a storm. Her petite body exuded an ethereal and translucent feeling. Yi Di's eyes widened. He stood up, forgetting his place. Suddenly, an extremely frustrated feeling came over him. What was going on? A little girl that they randomly caught had an ethereal body? I'm really old and muddle-headed. I really should have taken a look at her first. If I had taken a look at her, why would I bring her here in front of everyone? This bunch of old bastards, which one of them didn't have sharp eyes? In the blink of an eye, all of them were staring blankly. Instantly, their hearts felt as if 25 cats were rolling around, scratching at their hearts. Which one of the supreme martial artists didn't have sharp eyes? Once they saw this little girl, with her unconcealable aura and figure, they instantly knew that they had really seen a treasure. And an ownerless treasure. Yi Di. Xiao Sei raised his voice righteously. Your Yi clan is too unreliable, too much of a bastard. Every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. Whoever offends you, you should just find them. What right do you have to catch such a little girl? This really makes me, a righteous person, furious. This is too much. This is too much. Far worse than our Xiao clan. Xiao Sei waved and said amiably, Little girl, come here, come to my side. I'll protect you. Whoever bullies you, I'll beat him up. Yi Di glared angrily. I didn't see you so agitated just now. Now that you've seen someone, you're actually so agitated. You're obviously trying to steal my girl. You're right, brother. You really didn't do it properly. Qing Chou shook his head and sighed. Such a cute little girl, such a beautiful little girl, such a good-looking little girl. How can you do this? This really makes me furious. Little girl, come, I'll stand up for you. If you've been wronged, I'll stand up for you. Come to my side. Exactly. The little girl was so cute. The way the Yi family handled things was too. Young lady, look, I have something good here. Come, I'll let you play with it. Isn't it nice? Chen Mengqi was afraid of falling behind. The night the arch was furious. Shut up, all of you. The young lady was invited by our Yi family. Invited? At such a crucial moment, who would be willing to show weakness? One by one, they retorted sarcastically, Brother Yi, you don't even blush when you say these words. It's really a strange thing. All of you, stop arguing. The Dharma Supreme made the final decision and said in a dignified manner, Little girl, what's your name? Chu Lu was extremely intelligent. Although she didn't know why these old men were fighting over her, she knew that the current situation was very advantageous to her. Upon hearing the Dharma Supreme's question, Chu Lu blinked her fan-like eyelashes and said pitifully, I am Lu. The Dharma Supreme nodded and smiled. A good name. Growing up happily, very good, very good. All the supreme martial artists rolled their eyes. Of course, was a good name. But it was also somewhat ordinary. There were probably millions of little girls named Lur in the entire heavens. Why didn't the Dharma Supreme praise others? But when the Dharma Supreme said this, everyone understood that the Dharma Supreme must have taken a fancy to this little girl's aptitude. Everyone wisely kept their mouths shut. How old are you? The Dharma Supreme smiled, revealing an indescribable warmth and friendliness in his smile. 12 years old. Chu Lu rubbed her clothes. 12 years old. The Dharma Supreme was stunned. This figure didn't look like that of a 12-year-old, but more like that of a 9 or 8-year-old. Come over, let me take a look at you, the Dharma Supreme said. Chu Lu looked up timidly and quickly scanned the surroundings. She lowered her head and walked over. Everyone was furious, but who would dare to snatch the Dharma Supreme's disciple? The innate spiritual body was inferior to the innate spiritual meridians. But the difference was extremely small. Compared to the dark yin body of Feng Yuro's disciple, it was not inferior at all. In fact, in some aspects, it was even superior. Because the innate spiritual body could accept any kind of martial arts, but the dark yin body could only cultivate cold yin energy. Moreover, this was an innate spiritual body that had not cultivated much at all. It had an even more promising future. The Dharma Supreme placed his hand on Chu Lu's wrist, his brows twitching. Finally, he sighed in deep thought. I see, what a pity. Everyone was very surprised. Why was it a pity? The heavens gave her the innate spiritual body, but also gave her an incurable chronic illness. The Dharma Supreme's eyes were full of pity. With his cultivation without those suitable medicines, he was also helpless towards Chu Lu's injury. Chronic illness? The other second grandmasters could not hold it in any longer. One by one, they stood up to take a look. Finally, all of them sighed and returned to their seats, not saying a word. The Dharma Supreme's eyes flickered. He thought to himself, I'll search for these medicines. It's such a pity to give up on such a physique. I don't know if I can find a second one in this lifetime. Chu Lu looked at this group of elders. A trace of disdain flashed across the depths of her eyes. You want to be my master with just you? You pull out when I'm sick. You don't even need to work hard. My big brother has already gone through so much hardship and put in so much effort for my illness. His cultivation is far inferior to yours, but his love and care for me is far more than yours by 1,000 times. 10,000 times. A bunch of perverts. At this moment, a light voice came from outside. Is this the Xiao Xiao Hall? Chu Lu was overjoyed. She shouted, Big brother. Then she turned and flew out. The faces of all the supreme martial artists changed and they returned to their seats. Yi Di said, Are you Chu Yang? A figure flashed at the door and a tall figure stepped in. He smiled lightly and said, Yes, I am. It was Chu Yang. The moment he entered, he felt a petite body pouncing into his arms. It was Chu Lu. Chu Yang was overjoyed. It was great that his sister was fine. It seemed that this group of people still had some principles. Chu Yang, a few of us have something to ask you, Yi Di said gloomily. I was just about to ask. Chu Yang walked into the hall fearlessly. His eyes swept across the hall. He could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. Although the people here did not know him, he knew all of them. In the battle last night, these old fellows had all appeared. The Dharma Supreme, Yi Di, Xiao Sei, Ling Fengyan, Li Xiangxi, Chen. These people were all legendary figures. Big shots who could shake the heavens with a stomp of their feet. Now, they were all gathered here just to find an insignificant person like him to confirm some things. This world was indeed wonderful. Chu Yang thought for a moment and understood why they were so serious about this matter. This was a matter of great importance. If it was not handled well, the big clans would be embroiled in wars and endless chaos. Therefore, even though they were of noble status, they could only ask people personally. Only by asking in person, and with everyone present, there was no such thing as a one-sided story. It seemed to be making a mountain out of a molehill, but it was the best way to avoid conflict. Besides, with everyone here, there was no need to lower their status. Chu Yang sneered. You want to avoid conflict? How can I let you do as you wish? He had already made up his mind. Outside, Zi Xiecheng saw that Chu Yang did not send any messages and knew that Chu Yang had other plans, so she waited patiently. At this moment, the 12 supreme martial artists all looked at this fellow in front of them with gloomy faces. It was this little guy. Without doing anything, just with his mouth, he could cause a war between the big clans. More than 500 martial saints and above were buried in it. At this moment, they really wanted to kill Chu Yang. But with one look, they were all a little surprised. This guy seemed to only be a first-grade martial monarch. Although at his age, he was only a first-grade martial monarch. This was already considered very, very difficult. However, it was still worlds apart from the guesses that everyone had in their hearts. How could he only be a martial monarch? And only a first-grade martial monarch? Let me introduce you, Yi Di said gloomily. He was the #1 person below the Dharma Supreme. This was his responsibility. Of course, it fell on him. This is the current Dharma Supreme, the undisputed #1 person in the heavens, the ruler. Yi Di cupped his hands respectfully to the Dharma Supreme. Sorry. Lord Dharma Supreme. Chu Yang looked at the Dharma Supreme in surprise. Lord Dharma Supreme, I am also a law enforcement officer. You are also a law enforcement officer? All the elder masters felt dizzy. The Dharma Supreme looked at Chu Yang playfully. I am a law enforcement officer, the Southeast pharmacist. I represent the Southeast law enforcement officers to participate in this medicine banquet. Chu Yang hurriedly revealed his identity. Law enforcement master Han Xiaoran is my guarantor. The Dharma Supreme was also stunned. The few second grandmasters also felt a little uncomfortable at once. They secretly scolded their subordinates. Fuck, why didn't they explain such important information clearly? Now they were in such a passive position. This little one had already gotten involved with the Dharma Supreme. The Dharma Supreme nodded. You have to answer truthfully if I ask you anything later. Chu Yang said respectfully, Of course, I will definitely tell you everything I know. If there is any conspiracy, let me be punished by the calamity sword and die. Never to be reincarnated. This oath was extremely heavy. The punishment of the calamity sword was death, never to be reincarnated. This was almost the heaviest and most vicious oath in the heavens. When Chu Yang said this, everyone's expression became strange. He actually dared to make such a vicious oath. It seemed like he was really magnanimous. I am Yi Di, from the Yi clan, one of the great aristocratic families in the heavens. Yi Di introduced himself with a solemn face. Sorry. This is Xiao Sei, the elder master of the Xiao clan. Sorry. Just as he was about to introduce the next person, someone suddenly complained with dissatisfaction. Just say that you know. Damn it, every time you answer a question, you have to call me by my old name. I keep wanting to agree. Damn it. Everyone burst into laughter. Chapter 1047. My apologies. I know. Chu Yang's face was full of sweat as he hurriedly corrected himself. Shi Jing mumbled a couple of times, his eyebrows furrowed, and he finally stopped talking. Everyone tried to hold back their laughter, but there were still people whose shoulders were shaking. They were all of the same generation. Seeing this old fellow in such a gloomy state, they couldn't help but gloat. This is Ling Fengyun, the elder master of the Ling clan. Yi Di continued with the introduction. My apologies. I know. Chu Yang almost said, my apologies again. He hurriedly corrected himself, but there was still some lingering sound. Everyone laughed again. Haha. Everyone didn't dare to laugh, but the little girl beside Chu Yang suddenly burst into laughter. This crisp laughter came out of nowhere. It was definitely a stroke of genius. Everyone was stunned at first, Then they all laughed together, rocking back and forth. Even the Dharma Supreme, who was always serious and indifferent, couldn't help but laugh. Shi Jing's face instantly turned purple, then red, then purple. But the Dharma Supreme was also laughing, so he definitely didn't dare to lose his temper. He sat down angrily, smashing the chair he was sitting on into pieces. Then he went out like a gust of wind and brought another chair in. Chu Li was so smart, how could she not see the situation? Therefore, even though her laughter looked like a child's play to others, it was actually intentional. Chu Yang was naturally aware of this point. But Chu Yang had a good sense of propriety. Others were laughing, but he couldn't laugh. So, he kept a straight face. Yi Di laughed for a while before introducing the others to Chu Yang. As he did so, the atmosphere in the hall became more and more tense. Finally, the introductions were over. The atmosphere became silent. Finally, Yi Di spoke first. Chu Yang, you should know why we called you here today. Chu Yang sighed. Is it because of what happened last night? It's good that you understand. Yi Di said gloomily. Last night, because of your news, the big clans were in a mess. You have to give an explanation for this. Explanation? Chu Yang was confused. What should I explain? What did you say you should explain? Xiao Sei slammed the table and said angrily, hundreds of saint-level experts died because of one sentence from you. More than 7 or 8 supreme beings were killed by a single sentence from you. What did you say? Huh? Chu Yang cried out as if he had been wronged, but what does this have to do with me? I really want to help my friend. Immediately, all the supreme martial artists looked at Chu Yang as if they wanted to eat him alive. Sincerely helping a friend? You fucking helped your friend to hell? How can you help like this? Yi Shifeng went to buy information from you, isn't that good? Yi Di suppressed his anger and said, there is indeed such a thing. Chu Yang did not deny it. Dreamy went to buy information from you. This is not bad, right? Qingchoet. There's also such a thing. Chu Yang nodded. Ling Quanshui went to buy information from you. That's not bad, right? Ling Fengyan asked. So, his name is Ling Quanshui. Yes, someone from the Ling clan came to me, Chu Yang said, and I also helped him out on behalf of the second master of the Ling clan. Ling Fengyun glared at Chu Yang and was so angry that he did not say anything. Damn it, if there is such a thing in the future, you better help someone else. Our Ling clan can't afford to be helped by you. You sold information to our Shi clan, right? Shi Jing asked. Elder Shi, you are wrong. They came to buy information from me, I didn't take the initiative to sell it. Chu Yang explained, this involves a problem of initiative and passivity. This is something that must be clarified. Shi Jing was furious. The Dharma Supreme looked at him coldly. Shi Jing sat down angrily. Among the big clans, you and Lan Chang'e conspired and sold information to the Yi clan, Xiao clan, Shi clan, Ling clan and clan. Is this the case? Yi Di asked seriously. Chu Yang said bluntly. That means, you admit that you are the one behind this? Yi Di snorted. Not at all. I have never done anything behind this. Chu Yang looked at himself and then looked at the rest. He said frankly, since we are here today, I will tell you the truth. In your opinion, do I have the ability to do anything behind this? Or should I say, after doing so, I have the ability to not be afraid of trouble? All the supreme martial artists frowned. This little one indeed did not. This was a guy who could be killed by a casual blow. What right did he have to do something behind this? Besides, if I had the intention to cause a fight, under such circumstances, there must be benefits for me to take the risk. Even if you big clans fought to the death, what benefits would it bring to me? Chu Yang seemed to have thrown caution to the wind and said everything bluntly. Then why did you do such a thing? Yi Di asked in a low voice. I was just about to explain. Chu Yang looked at him and said loudly, I will tell you everything from the beginning to the end without leaving out a single detail. After that, I can let down my guard and accept the Dharma Supreme's soul-searching interrogation at the risk of injuring my spirit. To verify if what I have said is true. To prove my innocence. Chu Yang's voice was filled with righteousness as he spoke in a powerful and resonant manner. He had the sword spirit in his body. No matter who soul-searched him, as long as the sword spirit simulated a similar memory, it would be fine. He would not be injured at all. Of course, it would not be as serious as what he had said. But when he said that, all the supreme martial artists were moved. Soul-searching. Initiating soul-searching. How magnanimous must he be? Moreover, Chu Yang's words also confirmed his identity, pharmacist from the southeast. He must have seen Han Xiaoran using soul-searching techniques before? Say it. Yi Di's eyes flickered. That day, after I treated Wuxian's injury, I came down to Jiaxiu building. Lan Chang'e of the Lan clan found me. He said that he would help me get rich, help me marry a beautiful wife, help me make a name for myself, and help me shock the world. Chu Yang spoke clearly about Lan Chang'e's plot at that time, including the time when he had tea with Lan Chang'e, what he said, what his expression was, and what conditions he had promised. He spoke in detail. When he said that, two people's faces changed. One was Yi Di, the other was Lan Muxue. Yi Di glared at Lan Muxue and scolded, "Look at what the Lan clan has done." Then he asked Chu Yang, "Since you have discussed with Lan Chang'e and accepted the benefits from the Lan clan, why did you change your mind?" Chu Yang sighed and said, "At that time, my blood was boiling because of what he said. I thought of how glorious it would be to use my own strength to change the situation of the heavenly layer. So, I decided to do it on impulse. But when I left the Lan clan's place and walked all the way back, I became more and more afraid." Afraid? Yi Di's eyes flickered. Who do you think I am? To put it nicely, I'm the pharmacist of the Southeast law enforcement officers. But I don't have any power behind me. Even in the Southeast law enforcement officers, my position is insignificant. If I die, the Southeast can just change another pharmacist. Why should I cooperate with such a huge force like the Lan clan? And the one who framed me is the Yi clan, the #1 clan. The disciple of the Moon Breeze supreme martial artist has such a high status. How can I be worthy of that? Among these three parties, if I offend any one of them, I'll die without a burial place. But if I don't do it, the Lan clan will kill me first. Chu Yang frowned and his face was filled with grief and indignation. So, I've been worrying. Moreover, if I succeed, Lan Chang'e will always hide behind the scenes and not appear. Then, all the troubles will be directed at me alone. The Lan clan will definitely not stand up for me alone. To put it bluntly, I'm just a person to be used, a scapegoat. At the crucial moment, I'll be used as a scapegoat. Such a person. Chu Yang said frankly. Looks like you're not stupid. Lan Muxue said coldly, you actually know what kind of person you are. It's not that I'm not stupid. It's just that the Lan clan thinks too highly of themselves. Chu Yang said without holding back. Lan Muxue was furious. But Chu Yang ignored him and continued, but at that time, if I didn't do it, I would be killed by the Lan clan immediately. So, I could only continue. Only for my own survival. During those few days, I stayed in the Orchard Palace and didn't step out. I kept thinking about the dangers, and the more I thought about it, the more scared I became. Finally, that day, Brother Yi Shifeng came to look for me. Let me digress here. I don't have a good impression of Yi Shifeng because he once sent people to kill me. Chu Yang was still frank. Yi Di nodded slightly. He had investigated this matter before. Naturally, he knew that every word Chu Yang said now was the truth. But although I don't have a good impression of him, when he went that day, I was still overjoyed but also conflicted. When Chu Yang said till here, even the Dharma Supreme nodded. In such a situation, it would be strange if there wasn't conflict. When Yi Shifeng went, I cordially asked him to stay for a drink at my place to bury the hatchet. If he was willing to stay, I would tell him. If he wasn't, I couldn't do anything. But fortunately he stayed. Then Yi Shifeng gave me a section of spirit jade ginseng and asked me to tell him a piece of news. That is, when is the Lan clan going to take action? Chu Yang took out a section of spirit jade ginseng and placed it in front of himself. Yi Di, Please take it back. Got it? Since it's yours, keep it. In front of so many people, how could Yi take back something that had already been given out? Continue. Yes. Chu Yang replied and kept the spirit jade ginseng. When I heard what Yi Shifeng said, I was stunned. So, the Yi clan already knew that the Lan clan was going to take action. Luckily, I was more careful. Otherwise, I would have been killed by Lan Chang'e. Now, Lan Chang'e was killed by you. All the supreme martial artists thought to themselves. At the same time, they couldn't help but sigh. There was really nothing to say about this matter. Chapter 1048. All the supreme martial artists sighed and were speechless. It turned out that Chu Yang did not know what the operation was. Chu Yang only knew that there was a conspiracy against Wuxia, but he did not know that there was a divine tribe elder in the dark. He was just an idiot who was being used as a tool by others. He was just a slightly smarter idiot. Yi Shifeng was naturally asking Chu Yang when the Lan clan would take action to snatch the elder of the divine tribe. However, Chu Yang was at a critical juncture and naturally thought that Yi Shifeng was asking when the Yi clan would take action to shift the blame to the Lan clan. Hence, I told Brother Yi, take note, the Lan clan will definitely take action on the night of the 12th lunar month. Chu Yang said, we are all smart people and know when to stop. Yi Shifeng understood what I meant and laughed heartily. We drank to our heart's content before leaving. Yi Shifeng was a pervert. Yi Di's face darkened. After paying a huge piece of spirit jade ginseng, he received a piece of deceptive news. This matter has been like this since the beginning. This is the origin of the Yi clan's information. Chu Yang said proudly, Lord Yi Di, if you don't believe me, you can call Yi Shifeng over, I will confront him on the spot. Yi Di's face darkened even more. Yi Shifeng is already dead, I'll call him over? Why don't you call him over? Why don't you try? All the supreme martial artists had interesting expressions on their faces. This guy is really interesting, asking Yi Di to confront a dead person? How could Chu Yang not know that Yi Shifeng was already dead? Even when Yi Shifeng died, he was beside him. Yi Shifeng's death was also caused by him. But now, he had to pretend that he did not know, and his pretense was flawless. He pretended to be righteous. I believe you. Yi Di pinched his nose and said while holding back his anger. For more than 1,000 years, when have I ever held back my anger like this? And in front of a 10-year-old kid? Yi Di felt that his self-restraint was really good at this moment. If that is the case, then it is reasonable for you to tell the Yi clan the information. However, the Shao clan did not participate in this and did not take any action. Why did you give us the information? You caused the death of 40 to 50 of our experts last night. Shao Sei said. Chu Yang asked, since the Shao clan did not intend to take action and did not intend to participate, then why did so many people die here? Shao Sei was speechless. Yi Di laughed gloatingly and said, that's right. Your Shao family didn't participate in the planning or the operation, so why did so many people die in our Yi family's residence? Isn't it because of this little guy? Shao Sei said angrily. But if you don't plan to take action, then I'll take action. Why did he send someone to buy information from him? If they don't plan on taking action, they probably won't take action even if the news is delivered to their doorstep. Yi Di mocked. At that time, the Shao clan came looking for me. Chu Yang said innocently, since the Shao clan didn't receive any news, then they must not be in cahoots with the Lan clan. Then they must be helping the Yi clan. Since I had already decided to get rid of Lan Chang'e's control, the more help the Yi family had, the better. Therefore, eunuch Shao came looking for me. I basically didn't waste any time and gave him the information. Chu Yang said in a very righteous manner, moreover, even though I've received benefits. But if I don't receive benefits, Elder Shao will think that my information is not necessarily reliable. All the supreme martial artists nodded silently. Humans were like this. If someone gave you something for free, especially someone you weren't familiar with, you would instead think that there was a problem or that the person was trying to frame you. Only if you spent a huge amount of money to buy it, you would instead cherish it more. And it was without a doubt. As for home, it was eunuch Meng Se who came looking for me. Moreover, eunuch Meng and I have known each other for a long time since we were in the three heavens. Chu Yang didn't wait for Qing Cho to ask and continued, I'm a forthright person and I'm free and easy when it comes to handling matters. I admire my brother very much. Since he came looking for me, how could I not give him face? Chu Yang said, moreover, back then, my brother was very understanding of me. He once said that if it was inconvenient for me, I could just pretend that he didn't say anything. But my brother treated me as a friend and was so considerate of me. How could I, Chu Yang, not have the code of brotherhood? All the supreme martial artist's expressions became even more strange. All right, when you were with Yi Shifeng, you were afraid. When you were with the Shao clan, you were afraid. Now that you're back at home, you're talking about brotherhood. Do you know that it's fine that you're talking about brotherhood, but you almost caused your good brother to die, and the clan's losses were even greater. Furthermore, you were the one who received the benefits first? No matter what, I won't let my brother down. Therefore, I caught up with him and told him this news. Chu Yang said righteously, my brother treats me with sincerity, so I must repay him with brotherhood. Friendship is all about treating each other with sincerity. When he said this, even the Dharma Supreme almost fainted. This fellow was speaking with such assurance here, yet he didn't know how many people in the clan had died because of his repayment of brotherhood. All the supreme martial artists looked at Chu Yang, who was speaking with such assurance, righteousness, righteousness, righteousness and righteousness, and couldn't help but feel a toothache. Moreover, at that time, I also told Brother Yi that this matter was a huge whirlpool. I told him to be careful. My brother also promised me at that time. We were reluctant to part and parted at the entrance of the Orchard Palace. Chu Yang said with a clear conscience, I can confront Brother Meng Se about this matter at any time. Qing Cho nodded weakly and waved his hand. There's no need to confront. At this point, the interrogation had reached a stalemate. This fellow didn't know the real issue at all. How could he continue? In that case, you don't even know what they were looking for you for? The Dharma Supreme asked. Of course I know. Chu Yang said with some grievance. At that time, Yi Shifeng, Lan Chang'e, Yuga Changcheng, Brother Meng Se, as well as the few dukes from the Shi, Shao, Qin, Li and so on, were all crazily pursuing Wuxia. Which one of them wasn't drooling over her? That day, they almost started fighting at Jianghu Tower. Now, Duke Lan Chang'e wants to use this method to achieve his goal. I'm sure all the dukes will not agree. You mean this whole matter is because of jealousy? Li Xiangxi was speechless. Isn't that so? Chu Yang was stunned. Then he sighed and said with emotion, Femme fatale, this saying really makes sense. All the supreme martial artists sat upright with their eyes down and their noses down to their hearts. No one said a word. Chu Yang's mouth was not idle. He laughed bitterly and said, Lan Chang'e said that he wants to help me marry the beauty, how can I not know? If this matter succeeds, the one who will marry the beauty will definitely be Lan Chang'e and not me. He sighed with a lonely expression. I'm just a chess piece. A chess piece that can be abandoned after using it. That's all. The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, but this matter is not what you think. There's another reason. Chu Yang said puzzledly, another reason? The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, come here. Then he said to the second grandmasters of the big clans, everyone, if you believe me, I'll perform this soul control technique. How about that? Although everything Chu Yang said was flawless, the Dharma Supreme still felt that there was something fishy about it. This was a kind of intuition. Chu Yang's voice, expression, actions, tone, emotions and so on were all expressed in all aspects. What he said was from the bottom of his heart. Many of them even believed him now. They were all old foxes. Whether a person was lying or not, they could tell at a glance. But the Dharma Supreme still felt that something was not right. What was wrong, but he could not tell. All the supreme martial artists of course agreed loudly. In this world, if they did not believe in the Dharma Supreme, who else could they believe? Chu Yang's face was stern and fearless. He walked over with a selfless and generous look. Standing in front of the Dharma Supreme, with a puff, An aura was emitted from his body. All the supreme martial artists were shocked at the same time. This little guy actually dispersed his cultivation automatically when someone was performing the soul control technique on him, and let down all his guard. It was equivalent to putting everything he had, completely and defenselessly, under the control of the Dharma Supreme. Really, if one did not do anything wrong, one would not be afraid of ghosts knocking on the door. Chu Yang slowly turned around and said, "Elders, although I'm young, I know what to do and what not to do. I've said and done it. Everyone came to me to buy information. I've sold it and I've made a profit. As for what information everyone came to me for, I've also told you the truth. When I said the beginning of the 12th lunar month, it was the beginning of the 12th lunar month. The Lan clan had indeed taken action. My information was not wrong. Although it caused all the great clans to fight to the death because of this, I, Chu Yang, have a clear conscience. I'm righteous, I'm upright. I'm upright and upright, I do things by the book. I'm a doctor has the heart of a parent. My heart is broad and broad. Selfless. In this matter, yes, I've taken advantage of it. But those benefits, I should take them. To put it bluntly, it's inevitable that all the great clans will feel heartache when they have suffered losses. But as long as my information is conclusive, accurate, and true, then it has nothing to do with me. If someone dies, then it has even less to do with me. It should be, you should look for the person who killed them. A life for a life. If you want to buy information, you also need to show your sincerity. It's that simple. If this matter is not about a beauty but about a treasure, then the people who died fighting over the treasure won't go and find trouble with the person who sold you the treasure map, right? If you bought 40 steamed buns but you couldn't finish them and forced yourself to eat until you were stuffed to death, you won't go and find the person who sold the steamed buns, right? Chu Yang smiled sadly. The reason why I'm here today is because I'm weak. I'm weak, so everyone can blame me. Although everyone knows that this matter has nothing to do with me. After the Dharma Supreme casts his spell, the truth will be revealed. By then, whether you want to kill me or torture me, it's all up to you. But, please let my sister go. Chu Yang smiled bleakly. This is how the world is, nothing more. Chapter 1049. The Dharma Supreme stood with his hands behind his back, a complicated look in his eyes. He sighed softly and said, "It's good that you understand. If you were strong enough, no one would treat you this way today. Therefore, just as you said, although you feel that it's a little unfair, this is the way of the world. If it were Ning Tianya or Bu Luqing, they would only have to say, 'This matter has nothing to do with me.' That would mean that it had nothing to do with them. However, although you have explained it well enough, I still have to search your soul for the sake of the big clans. Do you understand?" Chu Yang smiled calmly. "Of course I understand. Therefore, Sir Dharma Supreme, feel free to do it. Just as you said, I'm not strong enough. I'll bear with it." The Dharma Supreme laughed. Chu Yang's words had revealed the essence of this world. Everyone felt a sense of agreement in their hearts. This world worshipped truth, promoted benevolence, advocated chivalry, and praised nobility. These were all true. Loyalty and filial piety would always be the mainstream of this world. They truly existed. Despising despicable and ostracizing the lowly, punishing evil and redressing grievances. These were also mainstream. And these were not only the responsibility of the Dharma Supreme, everyone was responsible. However, it was undeniable that bullying the weak and fearing the strong was more mainstream than this. Selfishness was even more mainstream than this. Bullying the weak was even more mainstream than this. Flatterers would rise and those who were loyal would fall. This was even more mainstream than this. Although no one admitted these and despised them, it was undeniable that everyone was doing this. This included the commoners. Whoever had a better life than them, they would look up to them and scold them behind their backs for being rich and heartless. However, they would still smile and flatter them when they saw them. Whoever had a poor life would often praise them. This person is honest. This person is honest. This person is a good person. Then they would turn around and scold in their hearts. This person is an idiot. Other people are rich when they become officials, but he treats himself as if he's poor. Marriage was not the only thing that existed between families of equal social status. Fairness and impartiality needed a foundation. Fairness could only be achieved when you and the other party were of equal social status. It was only fair for commoners to fight against commoners in a lawsuit. When the Dharma Supreme pressed his hand on Chu Yang's head, he looked meaningfully at the supreme martial artists of the big clans. Yi Di and the others lowered their heads in shame. Everyone thought that capturing Chu Yang for questioning was a matter of course. In fact, it couldn't be any more normal. However, after listening to Chu Yang's words, they suddenly realized that they had unknowingly committed the bad habit of relying on their power to bully others. By the same logic, Yuling Xue's and Feng Yuro's younger brothers were here, and the Moon Breeze couple had made it clear that they wanted to ruin the medicine banquet. However, after what happened last night, who would dare to touch their younger brothers? The Dharma Supreme's mental energy gushed into Chu Yang's mind like raging waves. Before coming here, the Sword Spirit, who was in seclusion in the tribulation space, had been forcibly awakened by Chu Yang to make preparations. At this moment, in the face of the Dharma Supreme's surging mental energy, the Sword Spirit roused himself and created a realistic illusory realm, slowly accepting this surge of mental energy. But the Sword Spirit's whole body shook as he accepted it, and an incredulous look appeared on his face. Then he became even more engrossed in his task. Chu Yang had always said that this matter was very important, and he wanted the Sword Spirit to do his best. But the Sword Spirit didn't take it seriously at first. However, it was only now that he realized that if he were not careful, this Dharma Supreme could easily expose his trump card on the spot. An acquaintance. Immediately, in front of everyone, Chu Yang's expression changed from quick-witted to lifeless. Then, the Dharma Supreme's dignified voice sounded. Chu Yang's stiff and mechanical reply sounded. Not long after, he had explained the matter once again. Moreover, under the effect of the soul search, even some details that were not mentioned previously were explained in detail. It was exactly the same as what he had said previously. All the supreme martial artists heaved a long sigh. We misunderstood. It was purely because of the selfish motives of each of our clans that led to this incident. What did it have to do with Chu Yang? You're from a big clan, and you've made it clear that you're trying to buy information from Chu Yang. Would he dare to refuse? Lan Chang'e went to Chu Yang for cooperation. Would Chu Yang really dare not to cooperate? They had wronged a good person. The 8th Grandmaster sighed. Chu Yang was such an honest child. Only Lan Muxue of the Lan clan looked at Chu Yang, the anger in his eyes growing stronger and stronger. Although every word that Chu Yang said was the truth, it also pushed the Lan clan one step further into the abyss. A big step forward. Now, the hatred and dissatisfaction of the other big clans towards the Lan clan had even surpassed that of the Li clan. Although the Li clan had one of the tribulations, they had only been defending and had not attacked. But the Lan clan had made the first move. And they had framed the Lan clan, using all kinds of methods. How could anyone tolerate this? After the Dharma Supreme finished asking about this matter, he did not release the restriction on Chu Yang's spirit. Instead, he asked about Chu Yang's life, including all the trivial matters from when he was young. All the supreme martial artists were puzzled. Why was the Dharma Supreme asking about these unimportant things? Wasn't this a waste of time? But they did not know that in the tribulation space, the two of them were on high alert. Chu Yang was fully focused on giving a flawless answer to every question. And it was the kind that was not afraid of being investigated. He said 7 sentences of truth and 3 sentences of falsehood. In this way, the credibility of his answers immediately increased. Chu Yang knew very well that only by getting past the Dharma Supreme today could he completely achieve the goal of keeping his identity a secret. In the future, he could do whatever he wanted without anyone suspecting that he was the master of the tribulation sword. If even the Dharma Supreme said that he was not, then who would dare to say that he was? This stage was crucial. Although he knew that Wan Renjie and the rest were in Tianji City, he did not dare to look for them. In the past, if he did, he would really bring disaster to them. He had gotten Nangong Shifeng's information that the 3 people who came to Tianji City looked like Dong Wushang, Rui Badong and Mo Lei, but Chu Yang still had to suppress it and not confirm it. He could not afford to make even the slightest mistake. But as long as he could get past the Dharma Supreme today, no matter what he did, it would be logical. The Dharma Supreme finally finished asking. He raised his head, thinking hard. The questions just now almost asked Chu Yang how many meals he ate, how many times he went to the toilet, whether he used his left or right hand to wipe his butt. The other party's answers had nothing to do with what he had just thought. And there were witnesses at almost every step, which could be easily investigated. But why did he still feel that this young man in front of him was somewhat mysterious? Why did he feel that he was hiding something? He was silent for a moment. Then, he activated the power of his spirit again and launched another counterattack. In the tribulation space, the sword spirit was already sweating profusely. He had scolded Chu Yang countless times for being a fool. Why did he attract the attention of such a person at such a time? The results of his long seclusion were almost all used up in this short period of time. Scolding aside, the sword spirit also knew the importance of this stage. So, he tried his best to hold on. The Dharma Supreme attacked with all his might while the sword spirit divided his attention to simulate. His exhaustion was almost 3 times that of the Dharma Supreme. At this moment, Chu Lu suddenly cried, "Big brother, what's wrong with you? Why are you so strange?" She threw herself into Chu Yang's arms and patted his face lightly. Suddenly, she turned her head, her pink cheeks puffed up. She looked at the Dharma Supreme angrily and shouted, "You pervert! Let go of my big brother." The Dharma Supreme's gaze was blocked by Chu Lu. He looked helplessly at this little girl who did not know anything and said with a hint of loneliness, "Don't worry, he will be fine." Finally, the Dharma Supreme retracted his hand. There was a hint of disappointment on his face, which disappeared in a flash. Chu Yang finally regained his senses. His body swayed and so did his head. He wanted to stand up, but there was no strength in his body. The moment he stood up, he fell back down with a thud. Then, he hugged his head with both hands and groaned. Anyone could tell that he was in great pain at this moment. It was very painful. The Dharma Supreme was still closely watching his expression, every twitch of his muscles, the look in his eyes. The Dharma Supreme's eyes were calm and sharp, as if to see through all disguises. But Chu Yang was not faking it now. The sword spirit was really giving him the same pain. In fact, it was even more painful. The Dharma Supreme's mental strength had already retreated from Chu Yang's body. Of course, the sword spirit could do whatever he wanted without fear of being discovered. After a long time, Chu Yang's pain gradually subsided. The Dharma Supreme's gaze also gradually retracted. Countless times, he had wanted to kill this person who had even a little bit of doubt under his palm. Even when he was searching his soul, he wanted to destroy his consciousness directly countless times. But now, they were in public, and this person was obviously not the Tribulation Sword Master. If he were to do such a thing, he would inevitably be looked down upon by the big clans. Therefore, after much consideration, the Dharma Supreme gave up on this plan. During this process, the Dharma Supreme had intentionally or unintentionally emitted a wave of majesty, suppressing all the supreme martial artists so much that they did not dare to speak. Only now did that wave of majesty gradually dissipate. Chu Yang panted heavily, sweat pouring down his head like rain. That intense pain made him feel like he was better off dead. The Dharma Supreme's gaze finally moved away from Chu Yang's face. After pondering for a while, he asked, "Do you have any other doubts?" Yi Di and the others shook their heads. Chu Yang finally stood up. His body was still a little unsteady, but after swaying for a while, he finally steadied himself. He smiled bitterly and said, "Seniors, your doubts should have been cleared. This feeling is indeed worse off dead." The Dharma Supreme smiled and said, "The feeling is not good, but when you came in, you were already prepared to bear with it." Chu Yang smiled bitterly. "If I don't bear with it, I can only die here." Chapter 1050. When these words were spoken, everyone turned pale with fright. Although the Dharma Supreme saw that this little girl had ulcers, he was still tempted. What a glorious thing it was for the Dharma Supreme to take in a disciple. This little girl and this little girl were definitely going to reach the heavens in a single bound. Especially Lan Muxue, whose expression was complicated and ferocious. If this little girl became the Dharma Supreme's disciple, how could the Lan clan take revenge on him? Although this little girl's aptitude was not as good as Bu Liuqing's disciples' innate spirit meridians, it was already rare. The Dharma Supreme was also tempted. He thought to himself, under my guidance, she will definitely be a demon-like character. She might not be inferior to innate spirit meridians. Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said, I should have accepted the Dharma Supreme's favor immediately. However, I agreed to someone else first. Besides, that elder has already gone to look for medicine for Lu. Currently, he has already found 7 to 8 types of elixirs and is only left with one last type. Oh! The Dharma Supreme said indifferently, I wonder who this person is? At the side, Lan Muxue sneered and said, the Dharma Supreme wants to take your sister in as a disciple. What kind of favor is this? You actually don't know what's good for you and dare to offend the Dharma Supreme's authority. Are you tired of living? He really hated Chu Yang to the core now. He couldn't wait to grab the opportunity to crush this bastard to death. Now that he saw this guy actually rejecting the Dharma Supreme, he couldn't help but add insult to injury. Chu Yang ignored Lan Muxue and said respectfully, it's an elder. Actually, this elder's original intention was only to treat Lu'er's illness. However, later on, seeing that Lu'er was really likable, within 3 days, he cleansed Lu'er's meridians and transformed her into an innate body. He smiled and said, actually, Lu'er didn't originally have an innate body. It was only within the past month. Transformed into an innate body within 3 days? The Dharma Supreme was stunned. Everyone also took in a breath of cold air. If a baby had just been born, with the help of the residual innate force and the supreme martial artist's power, there might be a chance of transforming it into an innate body. However, to forcefully transform a 12-year-old girl, even if the Dharma Supreme and the supreme martial artist joined forces, it wouldn't be possible. Seeing how this little guy described it so casually, it seemed like he didn't know how difficult it was. Lan Muxue sneered and said, transform into an innate body within 3 days? Do you think that person is a deity? Even if he is a deity? Just as he said this, a cold voice suddenly came from outside. Lan Muxue, it seems like you still haven't learned your lesson that day. Then, a white palm flew in from outside the door. No matter whether it was the degree of solidity, size, or shape, it was exactly the same as a woman's hand. It floated in from the outside. First, it passed by Shi Jing, then Ling Fengyun, and then Chu Yang's head. Then, it slapped down on Lan Muxue's face. When it flew past Chu Yang's head, the Dharma Supreme actually had a chance to intercept it. However, his eyes flickered and he did not make a move after all. Lan Muxue's heart turned cold. So it's you. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that this little girl's master was actually that mysterious and absolutely powerful woman who had beaten him up that night. Before he could finish speaking, the palm was already in front of him. Lan Muxue hurriedly tilted his head, but the palm followed him and with a loud smack, it landed squarely on Lan Muxue's face. Lan Muxue had not recovered from his serious injuries. He had already used up all his strength to dodge the palm. At this moment, he actually rolled down from the chair after being slapped. He rolled a few times on the floor and lay on his back, blood flowing out from the corner of his mouth. All the supreme martial artists were shocked. The cold voice from outside said, "Unrepentant thing." Then, she said indifferently, "Lord Dharma Supreme, I heard that you want to snatch my disciple?" The Dharma Supreme took a deep breath and said, "I dare not. Since she is someone that senior wants, I naturally dare not snatch her." The voice laughed coldly and said, "At least you know what's good for you." Everyone was so shocked that they were almost numb. Who was this person? The voice sounded like a woman? What kind of woman could be so fierce? She actually dared to speak to the Dharma Supreme in such a manner. The Dharma Supreme said solemnly, "May I know Senior's name?" The cold voice from outside said, "When I am in a good mood, I will tell you my name. But now that my disciple is being detained and may be snatched away at any time, I am in a very bad mood." The Dharma Supreme laughed bitterly and said, "I am not being detained, I am just here to have a chat, that's all. Moreover, your disciple is so intelligent, who would bear to hurt her? They can't wait to protect her." The voice from outside said, "Protect, good, protect. In a few days I will also protect everyone in this house, one by one, and at the same time, I will also go to Dharma City and protect her." The moment she said that, the supreme martial artist's face turned ashen. If she really went to each house to protect then this day would really be over. Who wouldn't be able to tell? Even the Dharma Supreme was definitely not her match. The Dharma Supreme laughed bitterly and said, "It is all some juniors who are fooling around. For someone of your status, why bother with such a small matter?" The person snorted and said indifferently, "If I didn't bother, my disciple would have been snatched away." "Both of you, what are you still doing inside? Are you having fun being interrogated? Why aren't you scramming back?" Chu Yang nodded repeatedly, feeling a little uneasy. He raised his head and asked, "This? Can I leave now?" Everyone laughed bitterly together. "Who dares to stop you from leaving?" "Of course you can," Yi chuckled amiably and said, "If young brother Chu is free in the future, please come to the Yi clan to have some fun." Chu Yang smiled and said, "Of course, I will definitely go and have some fun." Yi smiled. Of course, he definitely didn't know that what he meant by have some fun was completely different from what Chu Yang meant by have some fun. The supreme martial artists from the other clans also expressed their friendliness to varying degrees. Only Lan Muxue sat on the ground, on the verge of tears. He finally knew how the Lan clan's bad luck came about. It must be that the matter of the Lan clan forcing Chu Yang had been found out by this powerful person, so this powerful person secretly set up a trap for the Lan clan. Then, he directly dragged the Moon Breeze couple into the matter and even beat up half of his body. Damn it! How could such a thing happen? Damn it! Chu Yang had such a powerful background and yet he didn't say anything about it. He had been pretending to be weak all this while. Wasn't he trying to get people killed? Lan Muxue sat on the ground in a daze, completely disheartened. All the supreme martial artists looked at him sympathetically. Lan Muxue was really caught at a loss this time. Everyone should stay away from this guy, lest they get too close to him and be infected with bad luck, or be infected by his stupidity. That would be terrible. Chu Yang and Chu Lu walked out of the Xiaoxiao hall with smiles on their faces. There was no one outside. Zi Sheqing knew that Chu Yang and the rest were foolproof after saying those few words. Now, even if the Dharma Supreme and the great supreme martial artist were to be emboldened, they would definitely not dare to touch Chu Yang. Therefore, Zi Sheqing had already returned to the Orchard Palace to drink tea. Chu Yang hadn't even walked half a mile when the sword spirit exploded in the tribulation space. Damn it! Why is he here? After the sword spirit recovered from the lingering fear, his expression was extremely horrified. What's going on? Wasn't he nourished the heavens? When the Dharma Supreme and Bu Luqing were having a heart-to-heart talk, the sword spirit was in seclusion and didn't hear anything. Why is he here? Chu Yang sneered. I should be asking you this question, Mr. Sword Spirit. What? How would I know? The Sword Spirit said gloomily, regarding such matters, how can I, a Sword Spirit, have the final say? But he definitely shouldn't be here. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. He said, then where should he be? The Sword Spirit was suddenly dumbfounded. Chu Yang roared in the space of consciousness, speak. If he shouldn't be here, then where should he be? The sword spirit opened his mouth and stared. Suddenly he slapped himself violently. Slap, 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 slap. It's useless even if you slap yourself. Chu Yang was indifferent. You're just a spirit. No matter how badly you slap yourself, you can recover completely with just a thought. Still not speaking? Are you going to speak? As Chu Yang said this, he gritted his teeth and pounced on the sword spirit. He grabbed the sword spirit's neck and shook him back and forth. I'll speak. What should I say? The sword spirit stretched out his neck, and another section of his neck came out. He smiled bitterly and said, It's not that I don't want to tell you. It's just that this matter isn't something that I can tell you. If I tell you, I'll be obliterated in an instant. Killed. Chu Yang snorted. Then tell me the truth. What's up with the previous Tribulation sword masters? The sword spirit remained silent. Chu Yang said lightly, Perhaps 1 or 2 people who can become the Tribulation sword master are cold-hearted. Moreover, the first Tribulation sword master misled people at the Lake of Despair. There must be some effect. But I don't believe that a heartless person can achieve the highest achievements. The sword spirit was silent for a long time. He looked troubled. Finally, he struggled and said, Don't force me. You'll know about this in the future. But I can't speak now. You can't speak? Chu Yang said angrily. Then how long do I have to keep the medicine in? The sword spirit sighed and said, I can only say one thing. Chu Yang said, What is it? The sword spirit stared at him and said word by word, Actually, the mission of the Calamity Sword, the master of the Calamity Sword, has never been completed. The sword spirit didn't say anything else after he finished speaking. He didn't let Chu Yang continue to interrogate him like a torrential storm. Chu Yang was shocked. He kept asking, but the sword spirit kept his mouth shut and didn't answer any of his questions. Chu Yang was a little stunned. He muttered, It's never been completed? But the sky has been mended after all. She's dead after all? The sword spirit was speechless. Chu Yang thought for a long time and finally gave up. He knew that no matter how he thought about this question, he wouldn't be able to figure it out until he reached a certain level. He said, Then, who is this Dharma Supreme? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.